What are you trying? Here we are live streaming and recording.
Thank you so much. And we'll call our local government coordinating commission. We are on. The word escaped me. To order. Thank you. And we have member Tejas online. We have member Single is excused, and the other members are here present in person. So we called our meeting to order. We'll start with a silent invocation and pledge of allegiance led by Commissioner Baca.
To the flag of the United States.
Wonderful. Thank you all for being here, and those in the audience. We're excited to see so many folks. I'm going to turn it over to our vice chair just to do a quick welcome because we're in APS's headquarters today. So thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening to everyone. I want to thank, first of all, our guests for being here this evening, and I want to thank the APS staff who have made this possible. This is historic. This is the first meeting of the Lgcc, I think, to be held at APS. So we are very excited to have you all, and thank you, commissioners and counselors for being here this evening, and my fellow board member, Rebecca Betson. So we're happy to have you, and we're looking forward to many more of these in the future.
Thank you. And I am also just want to echo to the vice chair and to the APS staff, all of the emails and all the preparation to learn something new, because not all of our meetings run the same from the county, the city, and APS. So it's really good to learn from each other too on some processes you had that I really liked. So thank you all so much for everything. So we're going to move on to our first agenda item to approve our agenda. Do we have a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. And since we have a member online, we'll do the roll call vote.
Madam Chair, can I ask that people say their names when they make a motion and second, since I don't know who's who yet?
Absolutely. So the motion was Councillor Feeblecorn and seconded by Vice Chair Benavides.
Apologies, Dr. Albright, we know better. I'll do that.
That's great. And I actually do not have anybody online.
Perfect. So we, when we do, then we can just do acclamation. So all in favor of approving our agenda, raise your hand or say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Wonderful. So approved. Next, item 4 is approval of our minutes from February 19th, 2026 that were provided in the board packet. And do we have a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve. This is Board Member Betson.
Thank you, Board Member Benson. Do we have a second?
Councillor Feeblecorn will second.
Thank you so much. And all in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Or yes. However you'd like to. All right, wonderful. So our minutes are approved. And then we will see if do we have anybody signed up for public comment, either written or online or in person.
Madam Chair, we do have one person signed up for public comment, and that is Janet Sayers.
Wonderful.
Is the person.
Well, thank you. And then while Ms. Sayers is getting to the mic, we will acknowledge Commissioner Barboa has joined us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Here, present. Thank you. Sorry to be late.
Thank you, Ms. Sayers. Please proceed.
Well, good evening. I was here last night when there were 39 people signed up for public comment, many of whom were teachers. But tonight I am wearing my Parks and Recreation hat. So if I can read all this properly. So when I started with the Parks and Recreation Department in 1973, we shared in common with APS dirt, undeveloped parks, undeveloped APS playgrounds. And the city had many, well, so together we had all these undeveloped sites. And the joint use agreement was a new way for the city and APS to work together to create the much needed commodity of green grass. And would you like me to pause while Commissioner Baca arrives?
No, that's okay. Keep going. We're gonna get another, we have
I'm
a
listening, Janet.
big board. Please.
Well, you can restore my time. Okay. So both of us wanted to create more grass recreation fields. And in order to do that, APS, we had a partnership with APS. Some of the middle schools where the city paid for recreation fields included Hayes, Van Buren, John Adams, McKinley, Washington, Jackson, Grant, Madison, and Garfield. Some of the elementary schools included Inez, Comanche, Osuna, Mitchell, Sombra Del Monte, and Emerson. That was city money that built recreation fields and playgrounds on the grounds of APS schools. And the premise was that the school had exclusive use during the school day, but the public could use it after school, on weekends in the summer.
Thank you, Janet.
And the city even maintained everything. And then APS, we billed APS and they paid us for that cost. Okay. Everything changed, and all of those were open and available to the public. Everything changed after the school shootings in Florida and other sites and wanting more security, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, all of these millions of dollars of recreation facilities they already had fences. Most of them had fences, but they were closed and could no longer be used by the public. I would urge APS, the city, and the county to figure out a way, especially for what I call the disconnected recreation fields that are not anywhere near a building. There could still be the fence is there separating it from the building, to work together, pilot project, whatever, to start allowing public use again of those. They sit on a hot 100-degree summer day. People can't go and enjoy the grass, or on a week. I mean, anyway, thank you very much. I know I'm over my 2 minutes. Did Christy ring her bell like she did last night?
Okay.
5 more seconds, Miss Sarah.
Okay, so thank you very much. But I do urge you to look at that, because the buildings can still be secure and the grass fields can be used, and the playground equipment by the community, because the city paid for it. And the county also has some similar facilities where the county paid for that.
Okay.
On schools that are in the county.
Thank you.
You've now gone over your 2 minutes.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sayers. And we'll definitely look at that as maybe an agenda item. We can dig into what that looks like, because I think we all hear about that in the community. And I think with the community schools, I know some of us are on the ABC Community School Board, and I think we're already doing the work as a school system to make our community schools the hub. That should include the grounds. So I think that's a really great way that we can figure out how to do that. And this is exactly the place to do that at this board. So thank you so much for bringing that to our attention. Okay, we'll move on to our discussion items if there's no more public commenters. To item 5, our standing agenda item of the opioid settlement fund project updates. And we'll start with Kylie from APS, our Director of Prevention and Intervention. I'm sorry, I should be formal. Kylie Schurter, APS Director of Prevention and Intervention in the Crossroads Substance Prevention and Intervention School-Based Behavioral Health Counseling Programs.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. I do have slides to kind of guide us through those same slides, new information. But we can go ahead and go to next slide.
Ms. Schroeder, if you could bring the mic closer to you so we can hear on Zoom for the recording.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Next slide, please. Next slide again, please. Okay. So hopefully, I don't know if you all can, we'll just go down through it. So
Presentation mode, that might be helpful.
yeah,
I'm unable to do that with a single screen. I apologize.
okay. All right, we will go through it. So when I usually report out to you all, I go over our main areas that we have been given funding to expand. So just to recap, we were given funding to expand the Crossroads program, which is that substance prevention intervention program, as well as our behavioral health counseling program. And so to give you updates on staffing, I think I reported last time, I had my one district support person that left me to go back to the schools. I tried not to take that personally, but we did replace the position, and I do have another district support person on board. So she is actively learning the role and pulling data and supporting both teams. So that position has been replaced. So as of 4/9, we now have 6 middle school Crossroads counselors hired out of the 11 allocations. So we are making progress. As I've reported in the past, there is a counselor shortage. We're in competition. I'm always poaching from our schools where our hiring, it's just a small pool that we're drawing from. However, I'm very encouraged. We did have to pull down our postings. We do that every year and then repost in April, but now the positions that are posted are for next school year. And I'm encouraged because I've been getting emails already about people who have been applying. So in the next month or so, we'll begin that interviewing process for hiring positions for next year. And I am very optimistic. I think we might hit being able to fill these positions. So fingers crossed, but that is for the middle school Crossroads program. I'm gonna kind of go back and forth on the sides here. So for our behavioral health counselors, we have, as of 4/9, we have 10 and a half of them in place out of the 14 full-time positions allocated. The positions are listed as 0.5 or 1.0. With the 0.5 positions being at one school and the 1.0 positions being at 2 schools. So with our behavioral health counselors, we are now in 22 elementary and middle schools, which, I always get excited about that. That's good stuff. So we have 22 therapists. So that's another way of thinking of that on our behavioral health counseling side. That's 22 clinical therapists that are able to do therapy during the school day for students that might not receive those services otherwise. On the Crossroads side, those 6 middle school counselors that we have, we are serving 19 middle schools between the 6 of them. And they are, again, it's also a mix of 0.5 and 1.0 with the same thing, 1 school versus 2 schools. So we are getting there. Another part on the staffing issue was that we received funding for creating prevention clubs. So these are clubs at our schools where the students, it's student-led, but APS does require that we have a staff sponsor. So we were able, through funding, to be able to have 20 allocations for a 0.1 extended contract for those participating sponsors. And we now have 16 out of 20 spots filled. So there is an interest in our own staff to support these prevention clubs, which is amazing. We actually just started 2 more, and they were nurses. So we have nurses, social workers, and counselors right now, and next year we'll be able to open it up to teachers who might also be interested in being sponsors. So that's really exciting. Let's see. So the services that we're providing on the Crossroads side, we have our direct contacts, which is the one-on-one meetings with students, as well as family support. And then we also offer that intervention, which is called PIP, which is the Parent Involvement Program, when there has been an infraction. So just to remind everybody, that's what PIP is. So when there's an infraction, we offer PIP as an alternative to suspension days. So if the family elects to participate in PIP, then there is a reduction or sometimes replacing. If it was going to be a 1-day suspension, then we can actually replace suspension if they participate in PIP. So we have had 73 PIP sessions. We've had 249 contacts with our individual, those are individual students, by the way. So when we're bean counting, we're not counting, that's individual students. 249 individual students have been seen. And this is through 2/28. Our data kind of rolls in a certain way. So I'm trying to put out the dates that these were effective. So that's through the end of February on our numbers for Crossroads. We continue to do presentations and training to staff and students. And kind of on a side note, one of the curriculum programs that we use is the DEA Discovery Ed, their free curriculum that we love. We try to use whenever we can. And I was able to share our my personal supply of the parent toolkits from that program with a representative from Roswell Public Schools who had learned about what we were doing through our spree, which is our prevention event that we have every year. And she reached out and asked for that curriculum. So I was able to share that with her, and she's taking that back to Roswell and hoping that they can get started on our prevention program. So that's really exciting. So I just thought I would share that. One of the other things too, so we don't just do our people, but I report out to you on outcome measures because it's really important to have measures of what we're doing and any impact that we're able to see so far. So on the Crossroads side, I will say that we've learned, so we're learning as we go along. We had to modify our survey. We learned that parents, guardians, and students are not really excited to be filling out surveys when there's been an infraction and they are sitting in that, what they feel like is a consequence. We know it's an intervention. They feel like it's a consequence. And so we were not getting a whole lot of parents or students who wanted to complete our surveys, which impacted our data. So we had to go back in and take a look and go, okay, how can we simplify? Is there something that we can redo? So we did do a little tweaking along the way. So we're gonna be looking at the survey data is a little bit different. So, but the good news is that after doing this tweaking, we've already gotten more responses to the survey than we did for the entire first semester. So that's encouraging because that outcome measures are really important. And so the surveys that we give them are like, did you learn something about, the brain, about brain development? Did you learn something about why your student might want to use substances? And it's coming out of this session that we have with the student and the parent together. That's encouraging too. And I think we continue to understand this better and look at the data better as we go along by sometimes realizing what's not working or what could be improved. So we're already making those tweaks. I think that out of the surveys that we've gotten from January through the end of February, we've shown the areas that are the biggest growth that we saw in the surveys were that there was an increased understanding of where to get support for substance use or mental health issues. 25% increase in the parent and guardians, 50% for students. And I take that as being encouraging. So these kids now know they're at least more aware of us in the Crossroads program and how they can access us, as well as knowing that we can be a source for referrals to connect them with maybe higher levels of care or other types of support services for the family. So that's the update there on Crossroads. If we flip back over to behavioral health counselors, the services that they have provided send through February 28th, 605 individual students were served with a total of 1,266 total contacts. So again, that is from update. So that's our through February. We did 7 suicide assessments and made 211 family support contacts. So the family support contacts are not just, it could be including them in family therapy. It could be follow-up phone calls. It can take different looks, but it is bringing the family in, which is nice. It's a wonderful service that we're able to offer in this position because the families, it's not, kids don't grow up in a bubble. And we know that a lot of what they're going through, by bringing the family in, we can support that student better. And it's a wonderful option to be able to do that. So our therapists are doing that. And we had 211 contacts through the end of February. So our behavioral health therapists, they give students and the adult in their life, parent guardian, feeling and behavior survey. They do that at the beginning of treatment, and then they do it when they're closing with a student. So the behavioral health surveys are a little bit different. Crossroads is more in an individual session with the PIP, and then behavioral health is beginning and end of treatment. So that's why sometimes we'll have more in 1 month. So our numbers have gone down a little bit on the therapist feelings and behavior and feelings surveys. That's largely because they're continuing to be in therapy with the students. So they haven't closed out yet. So at the beginning, it was a lot of starting, some were closing. Now we are looking at, I'm imagining that those numbers are going to go up as they start to exit students from treatment in the next couple months. And we also have these wonderful monthly meetings with the city and county. And in those meetings, we get constructive feedback. And we have taken that feedback, like, well, what are we measuring? How do we know if these kids are getting any better? And we took that to heart. So we have started looking at how do we show it better? Instead of just counting how many students, how can we look at these surveys and measure growth? So we're going to be implementing a different way of pulling that data. And we're already kind of looking at, it's kind of a weird time in the year to do it now, but we are going to try to look at month to month. So when we have our student to students, when they start therapy and they close, and looking at that, those scores on the survey, more than just who completed it this month, who finished it, who terminated treatment, whatever. So anyway, it's exciting stuff. I know I don't sound as excited as I normally do, but it is exciting stuff. And we are just, you know, again, every time I sit in front of you all, I'm just so grateful for the opportunity to build these programs and get to see the fruition. Whenever I sit at my meetings with my therapists and they're just glowing, and when I'm with my Crossroads, and it's hard work. It's hard work that these people do. And it's just amazing that they are very thankful to be where they are. And so I can never miss an opportunity to say thank you again for this funding to be able to do these programs. Okay, after all that, next slide, please. All right, so here are some numbers that we have. And this time I got to use the word encumbered, which was new to me. So I'm very proud to put the word encumbered on there now that I understand it better. So we have our allocations, and then we have our expenditures to date, along with remaining balance. And we have had some movement since I was in front of you all before. So some of the things, like I learned that our salaries are encumbered. So that's why I've added that on there. And that should represent, you know, like the numbers I was saying with the vacancies that are still left. Our prevention club staff, well, you guys can read and see those up there. Our professional development, we have, that's what we've done before. So that's going to be these conferences or any kind of training that I can send our behavioral health counselors to, or our Crossroads counselors to. And we do have 16,000 encumbered. We have a very exciting conference that we're going to the first week in May, which is all on, it's the National Alliance for Drug Endangered Children. And my team is very excited. It's got a fabulous agenda and a lot of speakers that they actually haven't heard of before. Sometimes when you get in certain areas, it's the same people at all the conferences. And sometimes in our area, that's exactly what happens. So they're very excited at the agenda for that. So that'll be next month for Crossroads. If you go down to the next line, it's wireless vape detectors. So that has gone through and we are now in the process of reviewing data to determine placement of the vape detectors. So we are looking at infractions, the hotspots, every principal, teachers too, they all know the hotspots in the schools. So I've met with the schools and we're looking at where they know their hotspots to be. And I'm also looking at infractions for the past 2 years, well, this year and last year. And we're going to determine a priority list from that on where the vape detectors will go in. So we are moving in that stage and we will see, the vape detectors do have cages. They're kind of like smoke detectors if you look at them. But they have cages because we know what these kids will do if they have access to them. So love our kids, but they're wise. That's why we're also hopefully getting decoys so that we can kind of revolve them so there's never lie. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you answered my question before I asked it, so yeah.
Yeah, because yes. So we are looking, so we're currently in this process of determining placement. So that's where we are with that, but it has been, there was actually a $19,000 balance we've got left. It came in a little bit under what I had anticipated. So we'll be looking at what we can do with that, but that's where that is now. And then the last thing is the prevention programming that you all approved. There were 3 programs that were included in that. One was substance-free athletics. Another one was Screenagers, which has the movie license for this lovely movie that is it's a real production. It's up to date, it's modern, it's not dated. That schools where we have Crossroads can team with the schools and do a parent night and do an event where, we have popcorn, invite families in to watch the movie, and then can be a question and answer afterward. It's also can be modified to be shown during the school day with teachers being able to interact or show it in their classroom with guided questions after it. So we have that we were able to purchase, and then Vive 18, which is a very large presentation that they come in and it's just high impact, high energy that we are going to be actually linking to our Spree event. We ended up moving Spree from the spring to the fall. Again, Spree is our substance prevention. It's our education empowerment. It's a large event of our partnership with the city and county. And it had a great turnout last year, and we're rebranding it to a fall event, and we're going to link it in October with Red Ribbon Week. It's a couple weeks before Red Ribbon Week because there's already kind of a heightened awareness, and we're going to be bringing Vive 18 in to be presenting in schools in the days working up to Spree on Friday. So there's going to be a connection there. And Vive 18 has got kind of like this, it came out of, I don't want to bore you guys, but it came out of this one guy's vision of, it started on college campuses, of throwing substance-free parties. And it turned into a whole entire prevention program down to high school, middle school, about how you can still hang out with your friends, have fun without substances and what that looks like. So they're high energy, they're fun, and they really know how to talk to the kids. So I'm really excited.
What Vive 18 is?
Vive 18, yes. And I'm so, okay, I gotta say this on the side, just a little thing. They came up with a very creative way to do, they're offering it's a prevention conference and it's on a cruise ship. And I was like, how amazing is that? Like people are there and they're sailing from Boston to somewhere south and then back. And it's all prevention, nothing but prevention classes for people to learn, whatever. And then I made that comment to my boss and she said, don't even ask EPS if you can go. Don't even, that just looks really shady on
Agreed.
paper. So.
Thank you.
So anyway, thank you very much. But that is, I know there may be questions, but thank you for your time. That is the update on Crossroads and behavioral health counseling at APS.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And any questions from our board members? Commissioner Barboa.
Thank you. I'm figuring it out. Thank you so much for the update. Okay, let me see. I guess I love the updates, hearing what you're all in progress, and I think the prevention pieces are really strong. I I guess when I hear things like, and because you say that you report them on them, I feel like I could talk about them, that, like if the surveys aren't working and you're tweaking out, I just thinking about different times of, like, if you're recognizing that people aren't responding to them, because I think that, and I also, and I hear you very clearly that you're saying you're not just looking at data, but a lot of it is what we're saying is just like that people, I'd like to just hear some of maybe the stories or sort of how it works, because we're getting in the weeds and I love it, and I'm like, I can't picture it. I sort of want to be able to
Tell me
see
what
it.
you want to know. Like,
Well, just in the, like, maybe in the next time, like maybe the picture of what it looks like a day to, or someone's experiencing something, what's the path they go through. Just like a picture. I'm seeing crossroads, behavioral health, some providers here, some providers there. I'm a visual learner. Maybe I need to just see
would
something
you
that's
guys
like a,
like to have one, for me to invite one of the therapists or one of the counselors and have them share with you? Or
I'm more just saying, I don't know if others feel the same way or whatever, but I need like a little bit of a, like, okay, what
what does
the,
that mean?
yeah, maybe like the big picture, like a day in the life, or as people experience it, a PIP or a, like, how does it go through a little bit of a visual.
I love that. I will
Thank-
work on that.
Thank
and bring it
you.
back.
And then the other piece I think will just be for all of the folks is that I think we've made so much progress, and I don't think you have to say thank you a million times, because this is public dollars, so it's not out of any of our pockets. But I love that. I think for me the most beautiful outcome out of all of this is that you guys are meeting monthly, because I have some vision and dream. I think Dr. Lindstrom, we've talked about it at length, that he shares with me, right, that we would have an ecosystem that really knows and works together, and that yes, when young people are out, but their families, and somehow somebody else on the outside can help pick out their families, because we have programs that are helping families, and and somebody gets incarcerated, and they're coming out of the jail, or whatever that, what is our ecosystem that all three of our organizations are. I think that's the point, right, is how we're there. And I know that's a huge thing to ask for, but even if we're just starting with little bites of how we can see that those things, and it sounds like that's what you all are maybe talking about. So I do think we need these updates and the dashboard information to be transparent. We've asked for that, so I'm not asking to stop that. And in addition, if there's a way to think about, maybe you could give us a little insight to the way you all are thinking about things connecting, and how part of all this is building towards a more connected, communicative system between our bureaucracies, because I think all of us know that none of us are perfect. None of us are communicating as well as we should be. And I'm glad we're all trying. So I think that's what mostly I just want, maybe to everybody. So not totally a question. Thank you for going first, Kylie. I'm gonna say Kylie only because I can't see your last name well. And yeah, I think that it's exciting. And so in the summer, now you won't have a spring, you'll have a fall event when kids are getting into school. I did have a question, and I think this might be about the for connecting, was that you talked about the sports, but I guess I'm just thinking of the other ways that APS has counseling. That's my question. Sorry. School-based health centers, the Quest School, like I heard the school-based health centers are going out, and someone from UNM told me maybe it's not, or something, that we were misinformed. If you have any information on that, I would love it, or if anyone here does. But then also that in regular, if school-based health centers are there, how are you all connecting, since they're doing some counseling and stuff too?
So for my programs, when I'm going to place a therapist, I typically don't place them if there's a school-based health center. So that we're kind of utilizing and spreading, going where there isn't already resources,
Okay.
Versus when they do have one. So we actually don't have, from my programs, we don't have like specific collaboration with the school-based health centers. Because again, I try to not place them in safe places. I do know, just to give a little bit of feedback, is that often on paper, it looks like there's a lot more services that are offered, but due to that counseling shortage, often the school-based centers are not providing mental health services. And then I don't find that out until after I've placed other people. So that is an area that we could do better with communication, so that we can have a little bit clearer picture of what services are being offered. instead of just assuming that it's being offered because they're on campus.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll stop there.
Thank you. Any other questions from our board? Commissioner Baca?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So along the same lines, is there an effort to coordinate services or placement of services with the community schools coordinators? Is that something that you would want to, co-locate, or something that you would not want to, because there are already some services being offered through the community school coordinators?
So largely the community school coordinators are more, it's less of a direct service for students
Sure.
and more, so we're more student focused.
Okay.
So we would probably get involved if they reached out to us. But because we are providing kind of the resource in the school as opposed to kind of how they refer out, as long as they're aware of who we are and we could have that, there's always room for improvement on communication, but we don't have anything specifically in place to
Relationship.
go back and forth. And sometimes part of it is the confidentiality piece. So especially like with our therapy, we're not going to reach out because that would be violating the student's confidentiality to them, but that doesn't mean that they can't reach out to us if they feel like there's information that we need to know. So we can listen, but we often can't communicate to them regarding the students unless we have a release of information, which is a little bit different.
And I mean, so you obviously everybody has limited resources, and you talked about 22 schools for behavioral health and 19 schools served for the Crossroads. So just in general, I know there's limited resources, and those schools have already been chosen. But I'm just curious, how did that decision made in terms of what schools?
How the schools are chosen.
Yeah.
So Crossroads and behavioral health are different. So Crossroads, I look at infractions. So that's often an indicator of the students that are getting caught. That doesn't mean it's always reflective of the students that are using, but it's who's getting caught. And I use that kind of as one of the, so I have like different things that I'm looking at. We look at, again, the resources that are already on campus. But then I look on Crossroads, some schools have really high infractions, and students are getting suspended. That's also another, area is trying to do more prevention. So right now for Crossroads, initially we look at where we can do interventions, but then we're also kind of keeping an eye out for where can we also do prevention. And that's hard because really to do straight prevention, we would need to be in the elementary schools, which we just don't, we're not able to expand into elementary yet. So that's part of it. So there's kind of like what resources are available, the infractions that are happening. For behavioral health, it's more, I looked at nursing data for placement. So nurses, there's often a crossover. We have the same students sometimes. So you have the students that are going in to see the nurse for stomach aches, and it's really anxiety. Nursing keeps great documentation, and they were able to share with me the psych visits, so to speak, for nursing. So I kind of had this elaborate spreadsheet, and I had a category for schools for ratio that were having a lot of those kids that were going to the nurse. I looked at, again, the resources that they already had available. Do they have a school-based health center? I looked at, are they down a school counselor? Are they missing resources? So I kind of came up with this, and then I looked at all of that, and then people that were coming in and applying, what part of town do they live in? How can we make this work? Because they do have to go between two schools. And so it's kind of pulling it all that together.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Vice Chair Benavides.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Ms. Schroeder, for being here this evening. We are so excited about this work. I wanted to ask, because I know it was mentioned at the last meeting by Councilor Tejas, I believe. She mentioned that there were delays in getting the wireless vape system installed. Have we alleviated those? And if so, how? And if not, when are we going to?
That's part of the kind of the plan for the whole rollout.
Okay.
Is we're going to release the ones that, so La Cueva already had them in place. So they're off of our list for getting more because they already have them. And then Rio Grande had already purchased them and they're waiting. So my understanding is that we will be working with technology. They do have a different model, but we want to make use of what they already have. So I think we're at that So they're kind of special because they already have them. So they're not even on my list because they already have them to install. So I think we're looking at trying to get those priority schools in first, seeing where they fit in, and then it should all be rolling out together. Because we're also going to be asking the schools to kind of come into an agreement with us as they're getting the vape detectors for accountability, for access to like have communication with me also, so that we can be making sure that this is not just about busting kids in the bathroom, but for every student that these vape detectors catch, that should be a Crossroads referral. So trying to make sure that that's happening, because that's the purpose of this, is not how many kids can we bust. These are to be used as an intervention, a way for us to be able to offer an intervention. So I don't have a date for you because I don't get to do the actual installation part. We had to team up with, Mr. Dubay, and to be able to get into the schools and have the actual installation. The good thing is, it's not a big thing to install them. They are wireless. So it's not like it even has to tap into our current internet system and that whole thing. So that's a good thing. So I've been told that they will be installed in all the schools and up and running definitely by by first semester of next year.
Great.
So that's what we're looking at. We'd hope to try to get them into this year. Who knows? But definitely by December of next year.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Counselor Tejas, who's joined us online.
Thank you, Madam President. Hello, everyone. So I couldn't be there, mom life. So I am, I do have, I don't think it's so much as a question. Maybe it is, a suggestion or just something to consider. Because I'm a member of my school's community council where my daughter goes. I've been a member of our community council for 2 years. And we are a very active community council at Marie Hughes Elementary. And one of the things that we designed as a council last year was based off of all of our goals and things that we wanted to do, was to offer a managing stress and anxiety program with a licensed clinical therapist that volunteered to provide this service to the school. She also was working with her students because she is also a clinical supervisor. So she was utilizing it as an opportunity to get her students really good hands-on clinical hours. And it was a way for us to bring families together to do group stress management, anxiety, just not even therapy, mostly group talk, because of course, as you know, it's not therapy. It's, we have to be careful how we approached it with licensing and whatnot. And I agree with you 100% that this type of prevention has to happen at the elementary school level. And I wonder if there is not a way where we can partner, or you can partner with community schools where, I'm happy. I think it would be great if you could talk to our community school coordinator, Nikki Baum, who's amazing at Marie Hughes, and see how we can, help with those preventative actions on our end. If you can't fund it, maybe the community councils can help on our end as we develop the type of things that our students and families need.
I love that. I think that's a great idea to look into. So I will definitely, I'm writing this down. So I will definitely see what we could do with that.
Yeah, and please reach out to me and I can put you in touch and I can give you all the information because we have a really great, I'm very proud of Marie Hughes Elementary and proud of our community school and what we're doing there. And I would love to see that, Marie Hughes could be a really great opportunity as an example for other schools. The other question I have is this, back to Vice Chair Benavides' point about installations. if they're very easy, because I know the ones at Rio Grande, they've had them for I think 2 years, going on 2 years without installation. They're just sitting in a storage. So I would hate for them to have to wait another year and a half if it is a really easy process.
I agree. I think that that is kind of a, I think it'll be done soon. I think that there is not, they are a lot less complicated because we did go with the wireless ones. The wired ones required a lot more from our technology. There was some issue previously, and part of the reason that they were halted with Rio Grande was because it happened at the same time as there was a cyber attack that happened. And so they really pulled back on doing any outside entity, because even with our wireless program, it does give access to outside entities into our network. So there was a lot of concern that had to be worked through technology. So I think we're at a place now where we understand it a little bit better. We went with a company that actually we're already contracted with, that already has access. So it removed that one barrier there. So because of those things, I do think these will go in sooner, because I hear you, they've already got them. Why don't we get them going? So I think we just have to kind of evaluate which models they had, if it can still feed into like how we coordinate. It is a different company. So how theirs might be slightly more complicated, but not at the same time. But I do think we'll try to make an effort to get that done as soon as possible.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Counselor. All right, so any other questions from any other board members? Awesome. I just have a couple, and I agree. I'm glad you added that we wanted to look at different types of measures, because surveys definitely, it's good anecdotal data. But what the kind of data I'd like to see is we're tracking suicide assessments, and then we see a decrease in those, right? That we're seeing a decrease in our overdose response, where you told us the whole heartbreaking story of kids ODing in school, right? That we see those going down. Those are the type of outcomes that I can point to say that this money, right, made a difference, which we know because of your amazing work that it will. But that's what helps us make the case to hopefully continue the work. So I think I was really excited to hear that. And then my question, during the our last ABC board meeting, I was very vocal about restorative justice, and how do your programs incorporate restorative justice in your PIPs and all of those things? Is there a intersection between what's happening with restorative justice at APS and what you're doing?
So we don't do the justice part. So it's more just restorative practices. So there's a little bit of difference in the two, justice, because it's more like the outside and like.
Well, I'm certified, so I
know what
look, yes, and it's
us
together, yeah.
So for us,
goes hand in hand. You can't have one without the other.
that's right. So we're trying to, so PIP is our intervention. So PIP is what we offer as, and the restorative piece of it is that we are, we're trying to work with the family, get the family involved also, which is unique to our program. That's not something that's typically done in some of the schools that do have programs. It's typically a student-based thing. I don't know, do you remember me last time? I just remembered this. I didn't report back to you. I did the benchmarking trip to California to look at their restorative practice program. Because theirs was completely student-led, and I was very intrigued about how to do that. So I did get to go. And I have mixed reports. I don't want to, I'm hogging all the time here.
No, it's okay.
But maybe it's something I can go into more depth on at a different meeting or separately. But
Sure.
the concerning part is that for them, as well as us, one of the major, I want to say barriers, but is that, so their program is voluntary. So when I wanted to go see them, I thought it was, here's a school district who is saying, we're going to do this, and all the schools have to do it. When I got there and observed it, it was more, they left it up to individual schools to decide if they were going to do it or not.
Yeah, which is, in my opinion, good, because what we did here, restorative justice, has become a bad word to teachers. And so I can understand the balance between Because here for our teachers I've talked to, it's like they don't like it. They don't want to they don't want to deal with it. And so get buy-in in these types of programs is extremely, extremely important. So I think there's a balance between those two.
Yeah, so it
Yeah.
was learning a lot on that. So our district is moving in directions where we're even looking at our handbook and trying to make it more restorative, like how we can do this. We've got schools that are participating in the culture of care.
Yeah.
It is definitely a goal within APS that we want to move in that direction. It's just, it's slow because we're big and
Yeah.
then giving choice
Yeah.
also.
Yeah, I understand. I think just making sure you're collaborating with the restorative justice team at APS so that we're having some alignment there as we're dealing with performance and infractions. And then you mentioned about exiting treatment. Is there a specific timeline students have to stay in treatment, or is it as long as they need it, or is there like you can only get counseling for 30 days, or because you said exiting treatment? So
We follow an 8 to 15 session kind of guideline. And of course, that's very individualized with students, and it's rarely cut off and you're done kind of thing. We found that kind of hits it. And if we feel the need to go further, we need to look at why. So would this be better for like multi-systemic therapy where they have a provider that goes into the home and works with the family and the student? So we look at that 15, if we're not making progress, why? And this is so hard, this has got to be one of the biggest challenges is we would love to work with these kids until they didn't need us anymore. But then there's also a waiting list of kids who need help. So sometimes we have to do this balancing act of, okay, we've got you here. So now you're ready for step down services. But that is one of the things that we do is we do step downs. So we may start out doing one-on-one therapy with a student. We get to a place where they're improving, they're more stable, families reporting improvement, the teachers are reporting improvement, and but they're not quite ready to be done. So then we do offer groups. Sometimes we can do a small group with students that are at the same place, or they may be ready to do a step down, which is a soft handoff back to the school counselor, who can then do check-ins. So it's kind of a graduated thing. We don't cut kids off that either.
That's what I was hoping is
Yeah,
like 15 sessions, you're done, kid.
Yeah,
Figure it
you're
out.
done. We
Okay.
fixed you. You're good. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to our next presenter. Thank you so much. And we have Ellen Braden, our Executive Administrator of Health, Housing, and Homelessness at the City of Albuquerque.
Hey, good evening. First, I would just like to start by saying that the slides are pretty similar to last time. It's just updates, but I heard at the last council meeting, there was questions about making sure that there was some discrepancy in the funding that had been reported at the dashboard and also that you're receiving from the Department of Finance. So the next morning I checked to make sure that I had accurate and then that it was in fact accurate. And then in speaking with city council staff, when I walked in the room, I feel like there's still a discrepancy. So the number that I'm reporting is on the next slide, is still the 40 million after I had that verified, and perhaps I got my wires crossed. So I just want you all to know that that is still different than what the information I got from city council staff. So I'm going to verify that again tomorrow, to make sure that what's on our dashboard is accurate.
No, thank you. And I think I don't think we think discrepancies, but we just knew what we were planning with in the settlement agreement were projections, right? And now that we were starting to get disbursements, those projections have been updated, right? And so what are the new projections and that are supposed to be in the DFA dashboard that you could pull to kind of be able to tell us for planning purposes if the schedule and the amounts have changed as far as projections go. And so that's, I think, what I know from my conversations, what we were wanting to get a handle on.
Oh, that's helpful, Chair.
Yeah.
To make sure, because I have not been reporting on projections in this report. And I don't actually receive the projections, but probably I might want to be part of that.
Well, that's a great question, because I know our county counterparts have access to a portal that they can go into and pull that. And we were told someone at the city has access to that. So that's what we're talking about. And if there's a way to get the updated projections for planning, that's all.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you, Chair.
Absolutely.
And then, so there's no changes on the very first slide. So if we'll go to the next slide, And we are keeping track of the expenditures as they go. So there has been continue to be expenditures, which is great. Specifically to our $10 million grant, we have not executed those agreements. Clearly, you all would see those yet, but we are meeting with those providers every other week to make sure that we have a grant agreement in place that meets the capital needs and also the opioid dollars. So those are a little bit more complicated than I think that we anticipated. So in those meetings, we have DMD, we have the provider, as well as HHH. So just wanted to give you all kind of apprised of where those contract agreements are.
Thank you. And that brings up, I guess I could wait till you're done with your presentation. to get questions. Sorry.
Okay, I'll take questions at any time.
Because I am getting calls from folks who have applied for the RFP, who did interviews in December and have not heard anything. And so I think that's concerning because I think it's, and I know you guys are doing something that we've never done by having you collaborate on an RFP to get money out. But personally, I think it's taking way too long to get this money out the door. Because we finalized the plan. I mean, it's been at least 2 years. Well, we're going into our second year. So these are dollars that can potentially save a life, and I just want to see it get out. So have people who maybe have not been selected been notified? Because maybe that's the case.
So Chair, that process was managed by the county, and I don't know if the people who have not been selected through that process have been notified, but the people who have been selected have been notified.
Okay, thank you for that. And I think our expectation was that this was a collaboration, not the county is handling that. It's both and are handling
That's
it.
correct. It's just that the county procurement is the one who had been communicating with the provider.
Got it. Okay.
So not like I'm trying to pawn it off on the
Okay.
county. It's county procurement. I don't actually know
Okay.
the status of that notification.
Thank you.
You all want to, you know,
Madam Chair, members of the commission, I don't know if you want me to wait until I'm up to address that issue.
Sure. That's so we can move along. Thank you. You're right.
Okay.
Yes.
Next slide, please. So while we're not yet reporting on outcomes on the dashboard, I included some sample outcomes for our existing contracts that we have in place, just so you could see some of the information that we are collecting. Some of these contracts have either expired, and so the funding has already been used. And so these are just by way of example. And then on the next slide, we do have some updates with the ACS funding that has come out. They have an RFP that's closing today. Probably by this point, it has closed, specifically for the Housing and Prevention Program. So I do want to apprise you all that those dollars have gone out with an RFP. And they have onboarded 4 street outreach navigators who have an average caseload of 130 individuals. So high level, those are our updates for this time period. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. Board members, any questions? Awesome.
Thank you all.
Thank you. All right, next up, we have Dr. Wayne Lindstrom, Behavioral Health Authority Division from the county. Dr. Lindstrom, take it away.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. I don't have a formal presentation for you this morning. Given that some of you are new to this commission, I thought it would be helpful to just give a broad framework in terms of from whence we came relative to this entire project. The commission had a working group that met for a number of months, which resulted in what we term an Lgcc guidance document. Once the Lgcc endorsed that, then it was presented to City Council. They likewise approved it and subsequently went before the County Commission and likewise they approved it as well. So that became kind of our Bible, so to speak, our roadmap, because if you go back, the original strategic plan was actually commissioned with Vital Strategies. We were very fortunate that the Bloomberg Foundation provided a grant to 7 states, New Mexico being one of them, and we took advantage of that. And when I say we, I mean the city and the county. And so we were able to have a voluminous strategic plan with something like 46 recommendations that resulted that we didn't have to pay for. And so this working group basically pared down those 48 recommendations to 8 major priorities. And out of that came initiative number 1, which was to fund the Albuquerque Public Schools $9.6 million over the course of 3 years to do the work that Kylie just reported to you on. The next significant piece was for the city and the county to jointly engage in a procurement of $4 million, $2 million from the city, $2 million from the county for capacity building. That was a joint procurement. It was done under the umbrella of the county. And we jointly scored the proposals that came through that process. And the city has landed on what they're going to be funding out of their $2 million. And we have landed on what we're intending to fund as well, based on the scoring of those proposals. On the county side, I can't share with you what that actually is going to fund until the contract is actually signed, sealed, and delivered, because we're in blackout until the contract is executed. So I was hoping that by today, I could report to you what we're doing with regards to that $4 million capacity building procurement. Certainly by the next meeting, I will be able to share that with you. The next pot of money that was an allocation, the directive in that guidance document, was for a $10 million infrastructure procurement on the part of the city, and a $10 million procurement on the part of the county, and that we would again collaborate in terms of scoring proposals under each one. The city was out of the gate first. They completed that procurement. We issued ours later, and I regret to say that out of the 10 to 12 proposals that we received, not one of them met the technical requirements with regards to that particular bid. So one of the things that Commissioner Barbeau and I have a meeting next week, and as chair of the commission, I wanted to talk to her about what the preference would be, because this is a county procurement, but I also, given the Lgcc guidance document, would appreciate some guidance from this body, because this was explicitly delineated as a procurement. On the county side, we have a multi-award, which means we have a roster of approximately 60 nonprofits that we contract with, who are designated as preferred vendors. So if we have a new scope of work, we simply can go ahead and add that as an addendum to their multi-award agreement without having to go through a procurement. It has taken us from August to now April to only find out that we don't have a set of nonprofits to make awards for out of this $10 million infrastructure pot. So what I'm asking for, and I'm not looking for a vote, but I'd like you to think about this and give us some feedback. We could, in fact, do the multi-award and present what the intention of this $10 million pot is, and solicit proposals from those 60 nonprofit providers. Not all 60 are going to apply. And that would be an option, and we could actually execute contracts much sooner.
Thank you, Dr. Lindstrom. I would be opposed to that. The reason is we talked a lot and hours in our subcommittee about this money always goes to the same people, the same orgs over and over again, because there's some, like you said, preferred list of vendors. And so it's not going to get to the folks who never get funding from the county or the city. So to say we're only going to choose folks we already have relationships with or current contracts with won't help us meet that objective of making sure this gets to providers who do not ever get the funding. And I think that's also why we asked for technical assistance so that we can go out, search for those orgs that don't have the capacity or the know-how to apply for these large RFPs. We even talked about not even figuring out a way to do it without RFPs. With grant applications that are much different than I was definitely very vocal about that. And so I would love to take that up again as a team to figure out how we need to get this money out, period. And it can't just go to the same orgs again. Because we're leaving a lot of folks out, especially in communities of color, like the Black and Native communities. We don't get no funding for these types of things from the city or the county when I looked at researching. And that's those communities that are suffering from overdose at the highest rate, and we're left out. So personally, I would not be good with that because it's just going to perpetuate the same thing about the same people always getting funded. But I would open it up to other opinions from other board members. And I know we don't have to just decide today, but I think this would be I appreciate that you brought that back to us because I definitely wouldn't want to see that. Commissioner Barboa.
Thank you. And I agree that we talked, and you and I have had extensive conversations about that we give a lot to the same, and who that usually is large entities like University of New Mexico or other real YDI, because they're big enough. I think it's a government problem, right? Because they're big enough to hold the liability we need to do the things. So, but I just want to make a case for, and like the 60 that we have, that process has been to try and cut through the bureaucracy. And in the last few years that I've been there, we've opened that up because we did have a smaller list. We've continued to have 60 nonprofits. The other part that I do think that isn't, so I would just say that our list of 60 is extensive and does include a lot of those. I think to your point of the, I think what is also not happening, right, is that to your point, like some of the orgs that aren't where these RFPs are, or maybe there's a grant process that's a better process, because these RFPs are going to direct service providers of behavioral health. So those are the same, like, you know, the folks who have contract licensed therapists or whatever. And I think I would love to know if maybe you're also talking about those folks that are doing leadership development and other ways that we know help prevent or intervene on substance use, but maybe aren't. I often call them like entry points because they're not the like clinical social worker or the licensed therapist, but it's definitely some of the things our families need. So, I mean, I think I would love to maybe have Dr. Lindstrom probably has a good answer to this, but I think he's probably holding back. But I think for our process, the other piece I want to say about this is this is the 10 million infrastructure piece, which, remember, I was adamantly against doing $10 million in infrastructure, period, because I don't think we need more buildings. I think we need more services. But I would love to have that conversation again. And I guess my question for Dr. Lindstrom is, when you said that of the 12, we did 10 or 12 that applied, when they were not technical, we did not have, whatever those words you said, that they were not technically, didn't have the thing they needed to be. Can you explain that further to me?
Sure. With each of these procurements, there are a set of technical requirements, and this typically is limited to demonstrations of governmental and fiscal
ability,
sustainability and capabilities, etc. So, for example, sending in their Form 990, which every 501c3 nonprofit has to file every year with the IRS, which, you know, lists, you know, who's on their governing board, whether any of them are getting paid, who are the main C-suite equivalents in the organization, and how much are they making, what are the contracts that they get, how much they're getting from Medicaid, what's their revenue versus what's their expenses, etc. Their 501c3 certificate, their liability insurance certificate of coverage, those kinds of things. And so there's, I don't know, 8 to 10 of these, their documents basically to be uploaded into Bonfire, which is the automated submission software that we use. And none of the bidders, in fact, uploaded all the required documents. They might have had the best proposal in the world, but because they didn't meet those requirements, we couldn't, in fact, award them a contract.
So thank you, Dr. Linson. So to my follow to that, is I think what Councilor Rogers, Chair Rogers was talking about is that we did, and we've at the county side, we've passed a whole strategic plan that includes really prioritizing that back of the house, as you explain it often, that we have so many folks that are doing good heart work, doing the good counseling work, and they don't necessarily have the strength to have a back of the house that can sustain them through the long term, through hard times, through good funding, through non-good funding. And so in our strategic plan, I know we talk about building that, and I know it takes a long time to build all that, but I guess I would hope that this commission can think about how we prioritize that, because I think that's the biggest issue that I've learned, is that so many of our folks are doing good heart work. It's not that they're not doing good heart work, but then they're not as strong in the back end.
Well, one piece of feedback I'd like to give you all is that by virtue of the county and the city working so closely together, we were able to compare each other's methodologies. And I can say to you, the county's process was much more onerous than the city's. And one of the things that I recently drafted a memo to the county manager around, we look at modifying the way that we do our procurements. And we also recently tried to simplify that procurement process anyway. But one of the things we could do, for example, is go ahead and have the proposal submitted, score them, those that are the winning bidders, then ask them for their technical documentation, which then doesn't make it an upfront requirement. And if they miss a document, then we can say, oh, you didn't submit this one, let's do that. And then they're complete, and then we can go into contract negotiations. So that's been one of the benefit of us working as closely together as we have on this project.
I think this will be my last one, because this is, I think, an important piece that I'm trying to understand. So because we put out the RFP and they didn't meet the requirements, there's no way, and we're government, we have to be transparent and accountable. So there's no way we could be like, oh, let's just go talk to them anyways.
Correct.
So we have to follow process, which I believe in democracy. So now you're saying, though, we can start a different process that doesn't ask for all those requirements until a second phase maybe, and that might possibly also mean that we could support those smaller orgs or orgs that don't usually get our contracts in building up that strength.
Madam Chair and members of the commission, yes, Commissioner Barboa. I guess the thing I'm trying to balance is going back to what you said earlier, Councilor Rogers, about, why isn't this money on the street? There's needs out there, et cetera. And so when this happened, I'm thinking, oh my God, here another protracted process. And so, I didn't want to take another 6 months, 8 months or whatever before we actually get these awards out the door.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner. I think that's the purpose of why I push so hard for technical assistance. So I love the idea of flipping the process to where if there's hiccups, we're doing this right now for my mentorship program, where there's insurance requirements that the city has for folks dealing with youth. Right. And so we said, you are awarded, but now and we'd let them know what those insurances were before they even applied. But now we have some orgs that have to go and get that. And so we're handing them off, doing a warm handoff to our economic development department, right, who has the resources to help business owners, including nonprofits, get those things in order so that they can do the referrals to the places where they can look for those insurances. I don't have to make recommendations that are not appropriate, right, for us to be doing or our teams to be doing. And so that's the type of technical assistance I'd like to see us. All of us have economic development departments. How do we hand those off and say, help them get over the finish line, because that's what they should be doing. And your teams shouldn't have what you do a lot of. I know from working with Ellen and sitting with providers and going through their advices and trying to help people get on track. I think that would be just a wonderful warm handoff. So those economic development departments can help them with the technical assistance so that they can. And I think that's the other beautiful thing is coming together to think about how do we hold these folks, and then we are building their capacity at the same time. So the next award, they can do it themselves and don't need as much hand holding. But I think that's what it's going to take to get the money to the folks who don't normally get the resources. And so I have 3 members. We have Tammy, Councillor Tejas, and then we'll come to Commissioner Baca. I'm sorry, Councillor Feeblecorn.
Madam Chair, call me whatever you want. So I did get an answer to some of my questions. So I just want to clarify, these are county funds. The city funds for the non-recurring have been allocated. Is that correct? Decisions have been made on those?
So specific to the $2 million in capacity bill, it was one joint RFP process.
Mhm.
And so those $2 million have been allocated, but we are still following the same process. And so until we have contracts executed, we are maintaining the integrity of the RFP. That was a long answer. Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
the answer is yes. Okay, so I guess I just want to make a few points on that. We have a strategic plan that the city adopted, which is slightly different than the strategic plan that the county adopted. And so while I appreciate you're asking our input, I do believe that county dollars are to be spent in the way that the county commission approves. And so I personally have no problem with going with the list of 60 that have actually provided, been worked with in the past and can move this forward. I do encourage us to get this money out the door. And if that gets us closer to getting that money out the door, I'm all for it. I do think it was important that we tried really hard to ask others to provide proposals in an RFP process. Glad that there's ways to improve that process. But, if folks don't qualify and if they don't put in the work, we certainly can't make them. But we do have 60 organizations that have been kind of pre-approved on these kinds of things, and they're ready. And then I do just want to once again say that infrastructure does not mean buildings. Infrastructure means non-recurring because it's not recurring money. So I just wanted to clarify that because I feel like I've said that in public at least 1,000 times. But thank you for the information.
Thank you.
All right, Councillor Tejas.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Dr. Lindstrom. So, I am looking at, have you contacted or worked with anybody at DFA's local government division to help with this plan and your RFP process?
No, I have not.
Okay, well, I'm happy to, I know you're asking for help from this board and this commission, and I am, happy to volunteer and work with everyone to help you get in touch with our local government division at DFA. This is their whole job, is to help local governments coordinate and make sure that they're doing what they need to do that balances access and accountability and risk control. So there's a lot of ways to, really address the situations I think that Councillor Rogers is bringing up when it comes to funding equitably and opening the process up to emerging providers and sort of understanding what their barriers to access is. And the local government department at DFA has a lot of capacity building partners in this way that can help you navigate the process and open that pipeline and take a hard look at how the procurement process might be unintentionally limiting this access, because there is really a huge opportunity and a pathway here for, I think, emerging providers. And I want to help get this money out as much as everybody else does. So we can, start with identifying what those procurement items are, what those sort of risks are, and how we can work on collaboration. But really, the DFA local government division, they offer guidance to local governments on procurement compliance, budgeting, internal controls. They can help reform and align procurement controls for best practices and design them so they have guardrails in place so that we can actually expand access and still make sure that we're not creating unintentional findings later. And so it's a really good place to help rewriting some of that new vendor onboarding and that RFP structure for the procurement code that doesn't create liability, but does open access.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, thank you for that input. If you have a contact that you would like to put me in touch with, be glad to reach out. I do have a former career in state government and am familiar with DFA, but I certainly would glad to hear about any additional resources, perhaps that didn't exist back in my state government days, and tap into those. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. And they have a special services bureau, TREEF. Their director, I think just changed, but Christina Martinez is a great person to reach out to. And I will make sure that we get this information to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Terrius. Next, we'll go to Commissioner Baca.
Madam Chair, thank you, Dr. Lindstrom. I have two questions. Oh, thank you. I have two questions. So I really appreciate you going on.
It's the red light's on.
That means it's off.
Oh.
Hello,
There you go.
new desk, sorry. But I like my chair.
You heard all my stuff that it says a big list.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Dr. Lindstrom. I really appreciate you going through just a tiny outline of the history because it was really important and it was really a collaborative effort. And I know people criticize us for taking some time, but I still feel like that's even more important for this to be successful in getting this money out. So thank you for that. But two questions came up. So I want to remind us that in that decision-making, I'm correct in saying that 40% of this money was going to prevention and 60% for treatment, correct? On all of these awards?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, that was part of the guidance document. Given that there were between APS, which has their own prevention and treatment capability, given the capacity building $4 million project and the two $10 million procurements, I have not actually tallied up how that falls within that 60-40 split at this point, particularly since we haven't awarded chunks of this money yet. But that's certainly an analysis that we're getting close to be able to do.
Wonderful. I'm just very interested in that. I'm not asking you to do homework for me. I'm just saying I wanted to remind us all that was an agreement by the group. That was a really important discussion. And kind of relates back to the 10 million for each agency for infrastructure. Again, goes back to the 60. I'm interested in seeing that 60 vendors because I don't know it, and so I think that would be helpful for all of us to see. But are in those 60 vendors of nonprofits, are some of those more focused on prevention, or can we add to that? I mean, prevention to me is activities for youth to do good stuff instead of doing bad stuff. In my little simple mind of recreation. Thank you, Janet Sayers, for talking about how important it is for us to work together to open our fields for kids to be running around on, not locked out. And so I'm not saying put this money for APS to open those fields, don't get me wrong. But I mean, the prevention component of this with one-time money could go to really good things to revitalize our communities that have been downtrodden by this terrible epidemic. So that's my little, reminder. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think, I love hearing from my colleagues because it changes my perspective sometimes. Well, just kidding, lots of times. So maybe we could look at both, maybe there's a list also at the city of folks we already work with, and the list from the county, and we can compare and look at both lists, not just the county's lists. Thank you. Ellen's like, oh, man.
Madam Chair, before we bid you farewell for this particular part of your evening, I would like to propose at the next meeting that we present you with some recommendations around where we go from here, because as you know, both the city and the county will be getting additional settlement monies through the year 2038. And the Lgcc guidance document really was focused on this accumulated pot of money to be expended over 3 years. And so we're going back to the Lgcc document, the vital strategies, original strategic plan, and want to postulate to you some things that might make the most sense on how to move forward with that reoccurring money.
Thank you for that. And I think that would be great. This is a standing agenda item already on our agendas. So I think that's a great opportunity to do that during that time. If that's agreeable to everybody.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner, please, Barboa.
Oh. I don't know. Okay, I yes, agree. Thank you. I just want to add my little 2 cents. I think is appropriate at this point. Like to the point, like so we have the money and we've focused on the money and what we all broke down. I'm really appreciative for both the reminder about the like 60-40 and the other 48 requirements that happened. And I'm not trying to get us back into another 48 or big process like that. I just do think that also this board is beyond just this opioid settlement money. And I am interested in that ecosystem. And I think the way you all are working it are surfacing that. To me, that's what's successful even out of this, is it's surfacing this fact that, okay, when I'm up here saying that I don't think these same 3 programs should always get the same money, is it that same list as the 60? Is it the same people that we're working with here? And I guess last, I'll just say, because I think for me, I have a lot of questions about APS and their part in the system around, they run a Quest program that people who've been expelled from school, which are likely have family histories or issues and substance use problems, right? And then we have APS also provides the education at the YSC Center, what many people know as the D home that the county runs. The APS provides the education there. And then APS also, in our previous year, before we got into just talking about Crossroads, we would hear a lot about APS and like absentee rates and how they're thinking about that. So I think that's the additional conversation I'd like to hear about APS. And then like with the county, we're running I think we should be talking outside of just the money that's going out the door, but more about we have a new Ponderosa place that's housing folks. We have a lot of things going on too. So just how we hear about those and maybe brainstorm some of that. And then the same with the city. Like I know Gateway for and the multiple gateways and I don't know, all the pieces that are moving there. And I guess part of the reason why I think that's important is because like there are some police this board, I love having the focus and something that we can point to with the opioid settlement dollars and have transparency around. But I also want us to still be thinking about solving the big picture. And I know for me, one more recently, a big piece was that our staff at MDC. So since I said all the things I care about APS, we also run the jail. And there is we have UNM runs our medical inside the jail. And there also is that crisis triage center on North Campus that we thought was like one of the answers to their problems. Our MDC discharge planners were discharging to that crisis triage center. And we learned from UNM, because they were getting turned away. We learned from UNM that it doesn't serve some of those big gaps. So I know it's serving people, like all of our facilities are serving a lot of people. We have 50 more of them and we would still be full, but we're still missing some major gaps around people with severe mental illness and using substances. So maybe there's a time we can just talk about how we get there too. So I'm just throwing all the things in the kitchen sink. Sorry. Thank you. Thank you all for your reports.
Thank you, Counselor Feeblecorn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just wanted to respond to one thing that was said, because I think it can be misleading when you say we're going to be getting payments in through 2038. We will. But let's not forget that the large payments, Albuquerque was at 25 million-ish. Bernalillo County was at 21 million in 2022. That number goes down in 2026 to 1.6 million. And next year it's 1.7 million. And it kind of hovers around those smaller numbers. And so I want to make sure that we are clear with folks that there's not this large amount of money that we've allocated, through this initial strategic plan. Those are not available in the future. But I will say, and I just went back because it's been a while since we developed this. So I just looked back at the city's strategic plan, which is, again, very, very similar to the county's strategic plan. And I do believe it's pretty clear that we said the 40-60 split is what we will be using for discerning how we use these funds moving forward. And so I think any suggestions along those lines are certainly welcome. I think that's kind of where we're at, is we're looking at a small trickle of money coming in for the remainder years, which once again was the reason that we made all of those appropriations non-recurring, because there will not be enough money to continually fund at the level that we have funded at thus far. That is why the APS funding is 3 years and 3 years only. And then they are responsible for figuring out how to keep that going. Same with all of these non-recurring grants that we're giving out to providers in the community. We don't want to set them up for failure. We want to set them up for success, give them what they need to get going, but then it is then on them to continue that path forward. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I think that is exactly why the disbursement schedule, the updated disbursement schedule, is so important. Because as our teams are pulling those, 2022, we got a large chunk right at the beginning, and it's been different than the schedule that we were working on. So I think that is why that piece of information is super, super important. And then, so maybe by next meeting, we'll be able to look at that, because I think that will help us be able to have those conversations too, when we're looking at how much are we actually going to have after the 3 years. So don't worry about, we'll do it at the next one. Awesome. Any other comments, questions, concerns about our group of presenters for the opioid settlement dollars?
Madam President, I have one question, and that's it. I promise I'll be fast. I'm looking at the outcomes documents that were provided, and sort of these outcomes of notes. And what I think that's where we're not getting the actual data that we really need here. Because what I'm seeing is not actually outcomes. We are seeing very important information. We're seeing outputs, we're seeing activities, we're seeing process metrics. We're seeing a lot of things that inform outcomes, but we're not actually seeing outcomes. So if we see things like in this participation where it says there's 46 currently in the program, 11 clients served, 1,326 admissions, what that is a measurement of volume of services, but it's not informing an outcome of whether this improved those individuals who were served, how they got better or how they didn't, right? And when we're looking at engagement processes and we see 70%, 72% engaged, 91 received assessment, that says program compliance, but it's not impact. And so we're seeing a lot of handoffs in the systems, but not final results. And so that is the big difference. And I think the big gap of what's missing, and it's the real outcomes. Did someone's life measurably improve, and did it last, right? And so this is great data and information to have, but they're activity metrics, and they show how many people move through the system, but not whether the system actually worked. And so especially because these are limited funds for limited years, they're non-recurring funds, that's why I think seeing real outcomes is so important, because then we can know in the future, should we be actually giving recurring funds because these systems are working, because we are now measuring, impact and not just throughput. And so that's what I would like to see. What we have the outputs. You're giving us that data. I want to see outcomes, and how it has, the impact, right? And why that sort of matters. Because yeah, the funds are limited, they're non-recurring, but if we can see that, it'll inform us as decision makers to decide, actually, this is a good system, this is a process that's working, maybe we should be funding this longer. And so with that, thank you for indulging me, President Rogers. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Counselor. All right, well, thank you so much. That gets us through our item 6 for first A for our presentations. Thank you all. Oh, sorry, Dr. Lindstrom,
No,
please.
that's all right, Madam Chair. I failed to introduce John Lacko to all of you. He's our data guru, and he's kind of our brain trust around developing sound data collection, analysis, and reporting for the county. And as we go down this road with our other partners, we are sharing our methodology with them, and we will be working with our partners around us, all having the kinds of performance measures, outcome measures, et cetera, not simply process measures as we go down this road. So stay tuned. We're getting there. We're just not, we've got a ways to go yet.
Wonderful. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you all so much. All right. Now moving on to item 6B, our library board, and we have Kate Alderete, Public Library Director, and one of our beloved members of our library board, Ms. Sayers. I think so. Hello.
I would encourage all of you to take a day and go to a local high school from 8 a.m. when kids start coming till they get out at 2:40. It's a huge learning experience about bathrooms and what happens with security. And okay, I'm sorry.
No, thank you. No, thank you. Please, Ms. Alderete, take it away.
Thank you. So, can you hear me? Does that, okay. Yeah, so I just want to start off with a small anecdote because I do feel like I'm dressed quite casually, but that's for a reason.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you move the microphone closer for those on Zoom?
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. But I wanted to show off our new staff shirt in collaboration with our Route 66 celebration in the city. So this is the International District Library. I got to model it today. I've got you. And I also wanted to just say, so you might have noticed the libraries were all closed today. That was because we had our staff professional development day. So that's an annual thing that happens. So I started my morning off by running team building improv stuff with my whole library staff. So some of them loved it, and there were a few people that groaned. As you would imagine, the library profession calls to introverts. So doing improv was like a big shock to their system. But they powered through, they made it, it was great. But my associate director let me know that one of our team members said something like, "Why didn't you warn us?" And I had this thought, just thinking about it and reflecting, that it's like such the mantra, I think, of librarians, because we go to grad school, right? And we get degrees in library science, but nothing really quite prepares us for what it's like to experience the joys and some of the challenges in our public library system. So I wanted to share that with you all, but thank you for having me and Janet tonight. My name is Kate Alderete. I am the director of the library system. Let's see, so I have a little slide presentation and a presentation that I'll go through. So most of us know the library. Many of us have stories of utilizing the library throughout our lives, including now. So we know that the library is not just a series of buildings and a collection of books. It is a part of the fabric of our city and our county. Throughout my library career, which is longer than I like to admit, I've heard many common misconceptions about the modern public library. So one of them is that we must be obsolete because we're in the digital age, right? Except, of course, the Albuquerque Bernalillo Public Library provides high-speed internet, we provide devices, and we even do in-person tech classes. We're just a warehouse for books, like just books, except that we lend cake pans and we have a seed library, and we even lend pickleball equipment. Our libraries are quiet spaces and librarians just love to shush people, except of course if we're engaging children in our story times, or we're hosting AMP concerts or facilitating cooking classes, because we do that too. The library is obviously an important dynamic space where community and activity come together. The library is not supplemental to learning and growing, but an extension of the classroom and the workforce and the neighborhood. It's where curiosity grows and where engagement with our communities and the wider world happens. The library is one of the only institutions where the goals of the city and the county and the schools really neatly overlap. And that's literacy and safety and economic opportunity. And if you don't mind going to the next slide. Thank you. So how does the library grow? Part of that growth relies on our city-county partnership. The library has 3 branches that lay outside of the city limits. And those branches are East Mountain and the Rodolfo Anaya North Valley branch and our South Valley branch. These branches ensure that constituents living outside of city limits have access to Albuquerque's high quality urban library resources. Another aspect of growth centers around preservation. We also work with the state legislator and capital outlay funding to address building needs. So the story of our library is fully defined by the collaboration between our city and county and state leaders. We truly are a shared public resource. So the library buildings around the city and county range in age from 4 years old to 101 years old. And South Valley actually just celebrated its 30th birthday, which Commissioner Baca reminded me that we met there last year. So all of course, these buildings come with individual needs. So preservation of these buildings ensures that library services can continue at all library locations. Those preservations include work on the main library HVAC system, which I know is a conversation that Janet has had with a lot of different people in a lot of different rooms. And there's a reason for that. So main library isn't just a library branch for this system, it's actually the central hub of our library system. It serves as the central location for our administrative, materials handling, fiscal, and maintenance offices that serve all 19 branches. And it also is our central sort. So that is the mechanism within the library system, and it's a physical mechanism that gets materials out to all 19 branches. And we do that with delivery trucks and with a whole team of materials handling folks. And the downtown main library branch is also houses our Friends of the Library store and their donation storage. And I will talk a little bit more about the Friends a bit later. Can I have the next slide, please? So we also continue to grow by supporting our children from birth. The library supports early literacy for our young families and children, preparing our youngest learners for kindergarten. Our early literacy programs are offered at all 19 branches and include programs like Read to the Dogs, Music and Movement, and early literacy workshops for parents and caregivers. And I like to say that we're the third space for our school-aged children. So we're a space where learning continues between school and home after 3 o'clock. And we appreciate that we are viewed as a safe space for our kids. And we actually have a name for those kids. It's not super fancy, but it is what it is. We call those kids library kids. And library kids get to don that badge for the rest of their lives. I myself, and I'm sure a lot of you, are library kids, right? It's where we grew up. So as such, we do offer a variety of after-school programs, including Lego clubs and sports clubs. We do Pokemon battles. And of course, we have professionally guided access to tech, STEAM, and STEM materials and programs. And finally, during the summer months, when kids are academically vulnerable to the summer slide, the library provides incentivized programs through our library-wide summer reading program, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with. Commissioner Baca. So that's performers, books, and prizes are offered to bring in both our champion and our reluctant readers. May I have the next slide, please? Thank you. The library is also fully engaged with the community through our community partners, including our 3 volunteer boards. So our Friends of the Library raises funds for the library through monthly book sales from its retail location, again, located within the main library branch, through pop-up sales, and also through our Fiction to Go shelves, which exist throughout the library system at various branches in the city and county. And all proceeds from all of that goes directly back into the library. The Friends fully fund our summer reading program, our Dia de los Niños programs that are starting at all of our library branches next week, and it runs through the following week. And they also provide professional development opportunities for our staff, and they provide material for our over 8,000 programs throughout the year. We also work directly with the Albuquerque Library Foundation, who raise funds for the library by directly soliciting donations from donors from all economic backgrounds. So the foundation provides funding for programs including Read to the Dogs and our lending library of ukuleles. Finally, our Library Advisory Board, appointed jointly, I'm sure you all know, by both the County Commission and the City Council, serves to help inform council and the mayor's office, the county commission, and state legislators, as well as the general public on the needs of the library. And I think we can all say Janet does a really good job of that. The library and the community don't just intersect through programs and while we're answering reference questions. We also engage regularly with our most civically minded community members through our Friends Foundation and advisory boards. And all of that is to ensure ongoing nonprofit funding and advocacy for the library. And our 2026 goals have been informed in part by our 2025 patron engagement survey. So it feels like it doesn't need to be said, but I'm going to say it anyway. Albuquerque really loves its library for good reasons. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So in 2026, we'll be focusing on outreach and marketing to ensure that all the contributions the library staff make to the community are understood and attended widely. With 1.6 million annual visitors. I'm going to say that again, 1.6 million annual visitors and over 4 million items in circulation. Our library is obviously one of the most heavily utilized public spaces in the city and county. And that is all facilitated by 162 employees and a city budget of $16 million. So I want to give some comparison. I appreciate the applause, but let's give the comparison. Baltimore County, 19 library branches with a staffing level of 500 employees. In Phoenix, the Phoenix Public Library System has 17 branches, and it's funded at $23 million. So when you consider that 61% of Albuquerque residents and over half of Bernalillo County are registered users for our library, it's really clear. The library isn't just an amenity. It's not just nice to have around. It is essential infrastructure to our city and county. So to continue to meet the massive demand of our community, it's vital that the library is continuously championed by the people in this room and the people who sit in other rooms and continually resourced by the people who sit in this room and will sit in other rooms and positioned as the cornerstone for our community's future. Can I have the last slide, please? So to conclude, I would like to invite you all to visit the libraries in your neighborhood. But I also would like to invite you all to visit the libraries in other parts of the city and county. Come and visit the Westgate Library and their stellar after-school programs. If you want to see really engaged kids, head on over to Westgate. Wantabo and their early literacy workshops. Come read to the dogs. We do that. And there are many participating locations, including in North Valley and in East Mountain. Visit the art and architecture at the International District Library and learn about our shared history in the archives at Special Collections. The public library is the heartbeat of our city. It's the living space for our neighborhoods. And I invite you all to participate in that joined and beautiful mission. And with that, I conclude. And if you have any questions for me or for Janet, we are here for it.
Thank you, Commissioner Bach.
Madam Chair, thank you, Director Alderete and Ms. Sayers for being here. I think that the Albuquerque Bernalillo County Library System is just one of those jewels that we should all be so proud of. We work on them together, we fund them together, and our common constituents attend them and value them. And so I just wanted to really thank you for being here, and we need to continue this communication to our community, how important our libraries are to not just our kids, to our families, to adults. And the one little commercial I will give is the May 30th is the end of the school year, and it's also the beginning and kickoff of the reading program for our libraries. And that's just so great because we don't want kids to backslide. We want them to read. We want them to keep engaged. We want parents to read to their children. And that is what a successful community is based on, that kind of education. And we are having one at the Patrick J. Baca Library at Uncertain Central on May 30th, first annual, that we are going to try to really include that very needy neighborhood in a very important project to give away books and continue that learning through the summer. So thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions from board members? Awesome. Well, please, and I'll ask my questions after.
So my other hat I wear is local history. And since we do have members of both the commission and council, and of course APS, and go Del Norte High School, I have to mention my school, which has been benefited by Commissioner Barboa. We're actually in everyone's district. Commissioner Benson, you have a little teeny corner of the Del Norte Attendance District. Who would have thought? Anyway, I just wanted to acknowledge on behalf of Route 66 that in addition to the 5 libraries where we're having this free 4th Saturday of every month program, we are also using the Cateras Hubble House on South Isleta. We are using the Raymond Sanchez Community Center on far North 4th, the Wheels Museum. We're actually, we included Rio Rancho since they're our sister city, even though they were nowhere near Route 66. But this is a good program, and congratulations to the city for everything it's trying to do to preserve the history of Central and Route 66. And thank you. And I enjoy serving, and we are hoping sometime to actually have all 15 members of the board, 11 representing the city, 4 representing the county, to have all of those filled. It's a work in progress. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just had a couple questions. So you mentioned the budget. So you said 18 million for the city budget. What's the county budget for the library? I know they have 3 based on our 16. So just wondering what the breakdown is.
Yes, so 16-ish million for in our city budget. The county MOU is 750,000
for 3 libraries. County
Yes,
friends.
that's true. Yes, that's it.
Okay. Thank you for breaking that down. I think that's
and actually, if I could just say also, we did have some non-recurring money thanks to Commissioner Baca last year at 250,000. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much. That helps a lot. And then I would just love to invite you to our International Fest on May 30th to kick off maybe the reading program with the table. Maybe we can get, so we had 2,000 people. It's a collaboration between me and Commissioner Barboa. We had 2,000 people, mostly a lot of kids, at the last event last year at Filchicon Park. And I think it'd be awesome to invite you, and we'll send you some information, and maybe you can have a table and give out some books and talk about the program at that event. We'll have so many. We have we got the zip line, Commissioner Benson. Oh man, they loved it. Yeah, they loved it. It was awesome. So we'd love to have you there.
Great. Yeah, we'd love to be there.
So thank you so much.
Thank you all.
All right, now we'll move on to the next item, housing and stability focus. And so when we were preparing for our meeting, we talked about what type of intersections. No, that's okay. I'm pontificating, so we have time. To really talk about what are the intersections that really cover APS, the county, and the city. And of course, housing stability is one of those intersections. And so we thought it'd be great to start getting some presentations so that we understand what all the entities are actually, what resources and what's available at all of our entities as we begin to look to, closing gaps. If we know what everyone else has access to or what we have access to for families, it will really help us. So thank you so much. So we'll start with Crystal Wilson, who's the director of McKinney-Vento and foster care at Albuquerque Public Schools. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Rogers, County Commissioners, APS board members, and City Councilors. I'm here today with my colleague, Jamie Ramos, and we will be talking to you a little bit about the work of Albuquerque Public Schools, McKinney-Vento, and foster care around housing stability. Next slide. I'll be going over 7 key components, and part of that will incorporate our funding and some of the funding that's been received around housing. But I do want to give you some basic information, and I want to thank you tonight for your curiosity about this work and the experiences of our students, our children, and our youth experiencing homelessness. Your time to learn really from and with us is going to make our community stronger. We appreciate that. Next slide. We're located at the Helen Fox Education Complex off of University in Gibson. If you have not had the opportunity to join us for a tour, each December we host an open house to the community. Not to families necessarily. We help families on a daily basis, but we also want community members to know where they can refer families for services. So we welcome you to join us if you're ever interested. Next slide. The McKinney-Vento and foster care program is a robust team, very multidisciplinary, and we serve students across all Albuquerque Public Schools, the entire attendance area. We're responsible for all the schools, as well as all of the APS charter schools. Next slide. One of the core components of our work is to identify through outreach. And so we are in the community, we are in the schools, but we are also in the communities around the schools, finding our students before they are enrolled back in school while they're experiencing homelessness. We don't wait for the schools to have enrollment. We actually go find the students. So over the past few years, through the use of student residency questionnaires, community outreach, online referrals, and screening tools, we've been identifying over 3,000 students a year. This year, we hit 3,055 while I was producing this presentation for you all. So we know that we have 3,055 children and youth experiencing homelessness in our Albuquerque Bernalillo community as of the time of this presentation. Next slide. Our team is also responsible for our students in foster care that are attending Albuquerque Public Schools. We are seeing an increase in overlap between foster care and McKinney-Vento. This is the highest number we've ever seen of our students in foster care that also qualify under McKinney-Vento. So under McKinney-Vento, you're in any sort of situation that is lacking a fixed, adequate nighttime residence. Next slide. So this slide is I'm really excited to share with you is our funding slide, and the orange section is what we'll be talking about tonight around housing stability. This year, we were able to receive a grant one-time funding through the Department of Workforce Solutions, Office of Housing, that was then routed through the Public Education Department. Before I delve into the details of the grant as is, I'd like to have Jamie tell you a little bit about the history of the Family and Youth Stabilization Project in Albuquerque Public Schools.
Good evening, County Commissioners and APS board members and City Councilors. This pilot program started in 2020 at the height of COVID, the pandemic, and we partnered, McKinney-Vento partnered with Bernalillo County And we set up a partnership also with the hotel. And so through there was a grant. And so we were able to provide some of our families a hotel stay in partnership with Ramada. And so we had that partnership. And the way we set up the pilot project was intensive case management. There was a team, an outreach worker and a social worker that would refer a family and fill out an application and a long process. And then they would have a 90-day stay at the Ramada with the goal of giving a place for them to work on stability and housing. And so through that, and of course, the goal was to stabilize the families and hopefully find more permanent housing. Then in, let's see, sorry, 2021, Bernalillo County started at shelters. And so we also had that partnership, and we worked very closely with what is now called Ponderosa Place, and also now that's called Gateway Family. And so, and we have weekly communication with our families and also, of course, the shelters. December 2021, we started a partnership with Department of Finance and Administration, DFA, which is now the Office of Housing. And we had that partnership. We were able to use ERAP funds, and we were able again to continue the intensive case management through the hotels, and we then expanded to 4 hotels. And so that's kind of the timeline of the pilot. And so now.
Thank you, Jamie. In October of 2024, I was asked to present to the Lgcc about the outcomes for our students experiencing homelessness and the impact that that was having, not only in Albuquerque, but across the state. I was joined in that meeting by the Public Education Department. In December of 2024, during our open house, we received a visit from a team member from the Governor's Office of Housing at the time, which is now over at Department of Workforce Solutions. They picked up an executive summary of the pilot project. And by January of that year, we were told to expect funding and to be prepared to expand our model. They were very excited about the work we were doing and thought that if we could receive $5 million over a 24-month period, that we could make a difference in the lives of 600 families. This was very exciting, and the intent of the project was to bring in 11 additional staff members and ensure that $2.5 million was available in flexible funding, modeled after the work we had done with ARP HCY funds. The intention was to stop the path to homelessness and stop reoccurrence of homelessness. Moving forward, in April of 2025, we shifted that work from the from the Office of Housing, was shifted then to the Department of Workforce Solutions, and the grant was then routed through the Public Education Department. Those funds did not become available to Albuquerque Public Schools until October 25th of 2025. At that time, we also received notification that our timeline was not going to be 24 months. It was the funds were going to be over on June 30th of 2026. We were able to move into an MOU with Bernalillo County, who's here with us this evening, in the early March, so March 2nd of 2026, that went past our board, ready to execute, and we were able to begin this work. I would like to share with you our current data. As of today, we have worked with 82 families under this funding. Not close to our 600, but very impressive for the timeline that we're on. Mm-hmm. In March of 2026, we were able to spend $237,000 in flex funds to keep families in housing or to stabilize them in new housing. That's, to date, that's a little bit more intense. And I'd like to share with you, because I'm very proud director of our program and the team that's working on this. We have served 308 individuals, 191 of whom are children. Our average amount of our award is just over $4,800. And as of today, we are just under $400,000 spent to stabilize children in our community. I'm very excited about that number and the work that has been done. If you take the $2.5 million across 24 months, we were looking at approximately $100,000 a month to be able to stabilize children and youth in our community. We have worked extremely hard without the additional 11 staff members to be able to spend this money in the timeline that we have. So I think it's very important that you understand the current impact and data. I want to highlight our current partners in this work. We meet with Bernalillo County, the two individuals here with us tonight who will introduce themselves and share additional work that they're doing around housing and stability. We meet with them bi-weekly. We also meet with the Department of Workforce Solutions and PED monthly. As part of these funds, Albuquerque Public Schools is leading a coalition for training and technical assistance for implementation of our model in Las Cruces Public Schools and Santa Fe Public Schools as well. So I'm very excited to share that we have developed strong relationships with them. And I traveled to Washington, D.C. with some of our youth and young adults last month, and Santa Fe Public Schools joined that as well. We're very excited about this work, but we want to pass the torch to Bernalillo County to share about the work that they're doing. But before we do that, I'd like to call the community to lead economic and housing stability with referrals from us. This has been an extremely challenging one-time funding source for Albuquerque Public Schools to implement. And although I'm very proud, I recognize that our strength is in educational stability. And we know that our kids are not stable in their education when their housing is not stable, but we need help from the community. And I want to emphasize that collaboration, which has been the theme of this evening's meeting, collaboration around our assets is what provides opportunities for our students' outcomes to be positive. So I want to pass it off to our partners at Bernalillo County to share.
Fantastic, thank you. Can we switch slides, I think? While they're gearing that up, my name is Carrie Ellis. I'm the Deputy Director for the Bernalillo County Housing Department. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our prevention team, our stability team, a couple of things. Deanna will take one piece of it and I will take something that I've been very passionate about and involved in. If you go to the next slide, is our Bernco Builds Home Rehabilitation Program. And so in neighborhoods across Bernalillo County, homes are being restored, revived, and brought back to safety through the Bernco Builds Home Rehabilitation Program. For many homeowners in our community, needed repairs like failing roofs, outdated electrical systems, or unsafe entryways can feel out of reach. And that's where this program steps in. Eligible residents can receive up to $40,000 in assistance as a forgivable loan to make critical improvements that protect their safety, enhance accessibility, and restore major home systems. So whether it's an upgrade to plumbing, weatherization that keeps a family warm throughout the winter, or a ramp that allows someone to move freely in their home, the program is designed to provide meaningful, life-changing upgrades for homeowners. To qualify, the home must be located in Bernalillo County, serve as the owner's primary residence, and earn at or below 80% of the area median income. So for a single family, so one person in the household, that comes out to about $51,000 a year. But for a family of four, it equates to about $73,000 a year. For four people, that's not enough to put into your home to make those much needed repairs. And for homeowners that are worried about the added financial pressure of getting those repairs done, this loan is a 0% interest, no payments, and fully forgivable loan after 10 years, as long as the family remains in the home and it's not sold during that period. The impact of this program is already visible. 10 homes have been completed. This is since January. 10 homes have been completed. We have 11 more under construction and 7 in the pre-construction stage. I will leave you with one story that really sticks out in my mind. We recently finished one of these homes, and there's a couple that's lived there for many years. And the wife is disabled, and due to the design and layout of their bathroom, she is unable to shower and bathe independently. Part of the scope of work that we did on this home, one of the repairs was adding a ADA accessible walk-in shower. And she is now, she told us, for the first time in 10 years, having the dignity and the independence of not having her husband bathe her has been life-changing. So the impact is tangible and so meaningful, and really speaks to the members of the county, of our community, and providing that stabilization for people to remain in their homes. Thank you.
Thank you very much to my colleagues at the table, Madam Chair, members of the commission. I'm so thrilled to be here to talk to you about this today. I can't even tell you. I see that on the agenda. My title is the Managing Director of ABC Community School Partnership, which is absolutely true. And I love seeing so many current and former ABC board members here. But I am also here as the Deputy Director of the Community School Innovation and Strategic Partnerships Department in Bernalillo County. So this is very much cross-sector collaborative work. As has been mentioned, as you said, all evening. So Bernalillo County, if you go to the next slide, please, was also the recipient of a very tiny pot of funds from DWS recently. $1.5 million was allocated for homelessness prevention. And if you don't mind me just telling a very short, quick story about why this matters to me personally. So about 10 years ago, I was working as a community school coordinator in a school, and a teacher sent a dad to come and see me. And this dad had two sons, one in the 3rd grade, one in the 5th grade. And the 3rd grade teacher was concerned because the 3rd grader could not read at all. So I went into the student information system and looked up the history of this family and discovered they had been in 7 different schools in 2 years. And that was my first introduction to student mobility and the impact it had on academic outcomes. So when I moved into my current position in the county, I continued, now I had a system level ability. And so I really started digging into this connection between student mobility rates, eviction rates in our city, and academic outcomes. And I found that there is definitely a connection. And I started working very closely with our law school and some other partners, and really focusing on prevention, because as Crystal mentioned, we can reduce these McKinney-Vento statistics by preventing families from falling into homelessness in the first place. And the most affordable way to do that is keep them in their current housing and make their current housing a much better place and safer place for them to live through rehab programs, et cetera. So with this $1.5 million, what our county manager, because I had been doing this for like 8 years and like really passionate and talking to everybody about how important it was for student academic outcomes, but also for their emotional well-being, their mental well-being, the stress that it puts on families. I can't imagine being a teacher. I talked to a teacher at an elementary school who told me she had 5 students start and end the school year with her. How do you teach a class like that with 5? Like, it was shocking. So because I had been just talking about this with everybody everywhere, county manager tapped me to head up this project. And I'm so excited to have this strong partnership with Albuquerque Public Schools, McKinney-Vento in particular, but it's also a cross-sector effort in our county. So it includes the housing department, it includes staff from the behavioral health department, it includes our real estate manager. So we really sit down every week and think about what are we doing? And we approached this 1.5 million homelessness prevention effort really as a data gathering learning experience, understanding that one-time rent assistance is not going to solve all of the problems, but it will give us an avenue to explore what do families need, how much need is out there, so that we could make recommendations to legislators for additional funding, and to try to continue this project. So we started on my birthday. It was really exciting for me. We helped our very first family. There's a picture of them, the Anthony Martinez and his older brother, who was raising him alone. And they did speak at the ABC board meeting a couple months ago. And we very quickly ran out of funds. So we expended the 1.5 million starting in October. By the end of January, it was, and that is also, I want to shout out Carrie and her team, and also Dr. Lindstrom, who let us borrow some staff from his department because we didn't have time to hire people, right? We needed to get going because our goal and our county manager's goal was to get this money out the door in 72 hours. And truthfully, whenever we encountered a procurement glitch or something that was making it a little bit hard, she was great at helping clear the path so that we actually are now able to get checks out the door within 72 hours to landlords and property managers. So with this 1.5, or sorry, we have, I'm going to go into the other funds we had. So with all the funding that we have collected so far, this is our impact. 1,860 individuals have maintained housing or been able to access housing. About 90% of the money that we dispersed was for eviction prevention or housing stability, rent assistance. Some of it was to help folks move into new places. And that could be that they just had to leave the current place or that they were coming out of homelessness. And that a lot of those referrals came through McKinney-Vento. That number represents 631 families, 989 children. Next slide, please. So just to break it down by impact, you can see, I know that folks want to know, like, what did my dollar do? So the state funds, it was 1,496,538. We got so close to like the 1.5. We paid out 678 requests. Now, in some cases, when the county team reached out to these families and these landlords, we discovered, to no one's surprise, that often what was creating the challenge with their rent payment were things like medical bills. Their car broke down, their job hours were cut, or their job was cut. Federal funding has cut many jobs recently, and that has trickled down, right? So as the county, we were not necessarily able to pay their medical bills, but what we did do was paid their rent forward for maybe 2 or 3 months and asked them to use the money that they would have spent on rent to pay for those medical bills to help them stabilize. In some cases, we know that that is all that those families needed. In other cases, we know that more is needed. We know that because we have engaged a social worker through the School of Law, it's complicated, to reach out to families that we have helped and find out. We're starting now to find out how impactful and how successful was this assistance. We are also in the process of creating an affiliation agreement with NMSU School of Social Work, so that social work undergrad students who need practicum hours will continue to reach out to these families that we have helped so that we can gather more data on, did it work? Did the child stay in their school? Did the family stay housed? And what else might they need? And what else can we connect them to? The average payment was $2,207. That number, every time I see it, is so shocking, right? Because it's such a low amount. It really doesn't take much to stabilize a family with rent, knowing that there are maybe 5 or 10 other things that they might need help with, but we have resources out there. We just need to connect the dots. And so in the state funds, it is 1,096 individuals, 541 children, 404 families. Now, we received more requests than we could actually pay with the 1.5 million. And so the county, through a little bit of nudging of Shirley, also gave us some funds, and we're working on trying to reimburse these funds. So $661,987,000 of county funds have also gone to this effort, and you can see that how that is broken down. 506 individuals, 283 children, and 159 families, just with those county funds. The McKinney-Vento funds are the funds that Crystal referenced. These data are different than what she told you because I had to submit this slide on Monday. And so her numbers are more updated, but we are the disbursement method. So we get the referrals from McKinney-Vento, and then Carrie's team gets them out the door very quickly. And it's really working very well, I think, very smoothly. And then I didn't put it on here because we just barely started, but we got a phone call from Department of Workforce Solutions not long ago saying, if we gave you another $1 million, could you spend it? And we were like, yes, absolutely. And so I don't have data on that because it's very, very new. And we just barely, like this week, started with that.
We've dipped in.
Yeah, we've touched it. We've had a
I assure
couple.
you.
Yeah. Next slide, please. Because of my community schools hat, I always, and because of my passion and like strong conviction that housing stability is critical for student outcomes, I just wanted to share with you some school data. When folks submit requests, we want to know if they are connected to a school. Now, not every request that the county paid with the state funds had to have a child in the home, but the majority of them did. So these are the data that I pulled just on schools very quickly. So 466, so over half of, well over half of the requests did include a child. Sometimes the child, so that we defined child as age 0 to 22, which matches the APS definition. We saw 53 of those, the oldest children were in preschool. And there is national data that says that the people who are most at risk for eviction are children under the age of 5. And so knowing that we are helping these preschoolers is so important to us. 205 of those requests were connected to APS traditional schools or charter schools. That includes state charters as well. And we had a couple private. I saw a couple from Pius, which again was a little bit surprising, but everybody needs help sometimes, you know, and oh, that's another thing I wanted to mention. We kept the barrier as low as we possibly could. Like we did not require, we don't want to see your pay stub. We believe you. Like our message was, we believe you. You tell us you need help. We believe you and we will help you. And so the barrier was very low. And that I think was really critical also to the speed at which we were trying to get this money out. 188 of those requests were connected directly to the network of community schools. 11 of them were connected to students. College students also need help. The number of students that I just personally have seen at UNM who were evicted is, again, it's shocking. Students should not have to worry about having a place to live. I cannot imagine how hard it is to understand. I can't understand algebra on a good day. If I am living in my car and trying to understand algebra, forget it. Like executive functioning doesn't exist when their levels of stress are so high. And so I also wanted to, I didn't put it in here because there were only, I think, 2, but 2 of the requests came in from young people who submitted on their own behalf, who were at the age of, who were 16, transitional aged youth. And I will next slide just leave you with a quote from one of my volunteer partners, who you also might know as retired Supreme Court Justice Ed Chavez. And he sent this to me and he with an apology saying, look, as a lawyer, I am verbose. And so it's a long quote, but it is really beautiful. So I included the whole thing and I'll read it to you because I know you probably can't see it on that screen. What he said was, as a volunteer with St. Vincent de Paul's eviction prevention program, I visit families facing difficult circumstances in their homes and help prevent eviction by providing rent assistance. It is not uncommon to visit a single parent who had lost their job unexpectedly or whose car broke down or health complications kept them from working, causing them to fall behind on their rent payment. The support we offer means the families can stay in their home, allowing the kids to remain in their school and keep their routines. Bernalillo County's eviction prevention funding made a real difference. In fact, thanks to this support, we were able to help twice as many families in our zip code areas for as long as the program lasted, because we had to close it down, offering stability to children and reducing the trauma that comes with eviction. Volunteering with this program has been deeply meaningful to me. Seeing the relief and hope in families' faces reminds me why this work matters. Eviction prevention and rent assistance don't just keep roofs over heads, they protect children's well-being and strengthen our community. Thank you very much for allowing me to share this with you tonight.
Thank you all so much for coming and presenting all the great information. Any questions, comments from our members? Commissioner Barboa.
I just wanted to say thank you, really, both all the projects, and the collaboration. Thank you. I mean, this is a great example of collaboration, but just also thank you for all your passion and work to get things done and get them done quickly. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Please, Commissioner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also wanted to thank the team. I mean, it's such a team effort. It's been just heartwarming to hear these stories, to be part of it from the ground up with Burnco Builds communities is really important. But I also wanted to give one plug for the collaboration amongst ourselves between the city and the county in this creation of the collaborative. We lobbied the legislature saw that there was a need and they trusted us at the city and the county and funded this. And this is the result of that effort and the state involvement in this and the result locally. You know, I just say bravo to all of you beautiful women. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other comments? Yes, Counselor Feeblecourt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question. We could follow up afterwards, but I'm really interested in your self-certification. A lot of the programs that I work on, I'm told that if we use state funds, we have to do the very undignified certification process. And so can you give me just a quick answer on how you are able to use that self-certification? And if it's a longer answer, I would love to just talk to you later.
No, Madam Chair, Counselor Feeblecourt, members of the commission, we didn't use any. We basically said, tell us what your situation is. We asked a question around average monthly income, but it was not any sort of sorter. It was just for our own information with a very clear disclaimer that it in no way would affect your eligibility. There was no barrier. If they said they needed help, we helped them.
That's incredible. But I have also tried to do that in other programs and been told no. So kudos for figuring that out and making it work. I think that's amazing because I do think it is ridiculous to ask people to prove just how pathetic they are before we're able to help them. So just thank you for that. And I might call you later because I am impressed with that because I have had at least 15 times that door closed in my face. So
I will give the credit to the county manager because I brought up your concerns. I was like, we have this law in New Mexico. And she's like, I don't care. We believe people.
I like the county manager and I like the way y'all think. Thank you.
Thank you. And so I agree. I think one of the things that made me think about when you talked about that was the documentary Inherent Good. And I would love for people to watch that because it talks about, and it's actually one of the comedians from the, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on, he's a comedian. And so it's a funny way of saying that our social service systems make us prove our worthiness to get the help that we need. And I think there's a balance between making sure we have checks and balances, right? With also believing folks and trusting that they're inherently good and they're going to do the right thing with that money. And that's happening with our guaranteed basic income pilot that we're working on too at the city. Just making sure we trust folks to do what they need to do for their families, and that they will do the right things with the money and of course pay for their housing so that they're not homeless, right? Instead of what a lot of people worry about, that they're going to go spend it in other ways and then end up homeless anyway. So I just love that documentary. And I think it just made me think about that, is that this whole country social system is about proving your worthiness to be able to get the help. So thank you all for what you do. Thank you so much. All right, y'all, we're hanging in there. Last presentation of the night. Item D, it is a Senate Bill 3 Behavioral Health Reform and Investment Act, Region 2 Plan. And we have back again, Dr. Lindstrom and Dr. Nesser, our Region 2 consultant. Thank you so much for hanging in there with us.
No, thank you.
That's what I was going to say. I don't know how much you all know about Senate Bill 3, but it's a journey that Dr. Nesser and I have been joined at the hip around since its passage, not in this last legislative session, but in the 2025 session. So we do have a PowerPoint presentation that Dr. Nesser is going to run through with you. And there's a lot of nuances around this, and it gets pretty complex. And if you're not eating and breathing and drinking this, sleeping this stuff every day, it's hard to negotiate your way around understanding where the legislation started and where we are at this point in time. And so we certainly will be amenable to any questions that you might have or any confusion, given that you don't have to immerse yourself in this in the way that we do. So with that, Dr. Nesser.
Thank you, Dr. Lindstrom, for that tee up. You can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So Senate Bill 3, which I think we're now trying to change to the Behavioral Health Reform and Investment Act, which is what it was titled to begin with, but we've had a new Senate Bill 3, so bear with me, I'm going to call it BREA, short for Behavioral Health Reform and Investment. So in 2025, legislation was passed that provided 150 million in GAP. They called it GAP funding for a regional planning initiative. They called it GAP funding because in the 2025 legislative session, SB 1, a behavioral health trust fund, was also passed and funded at $100 million with the hope that it would be funded at $1 billion. The state was then divided into 13 regions, each corresponding to a judicial district. There was a lot of chatter about that and maybe some frustration that there was stigma around utilizing the judicial districts. I think one necessity that we all have to sort of bear in mind is that our judicial system is the largest provider of mental health in our state, whether we really want to acknowledge that or not. But that's also true nationally. So that's not just a New Mexico issue, but it's a statewide, or it's a countrywide issue. An executive committee of 7 members was created to oversee the Behavioral Health Regional Planning Initiative. That committee is made up of 3 members from the Healthcare Authority, 1 member from the Administrative Offices of the Courts, and 3 behavioral health experts picked from the community. Each region then was tasked with developing a 3-year regional plan addressing 5 priority areas. The statute, if you read it, will suggest that it's a 4-year plan. However, by the time we actually got to regional planning, we were already past the first year. So it is now a 3-year plan. The focus of these plans is to expand and enhance behavioral health systems of care across all age groups. A note on the Behavioral Health Trust Fund, like I said, it was passed in the 2025 legislative session to be established at $1 billion. Contributions to the fund in the 2026 session was right around 70 million, maybe a little bit more. So we're hovering right around 200 million at this point in time. According to the statute, the Behavioral Health Trust Fund dividend is supposedly accessible in FY 2027 via 5% pull from that. So I think in general, legislators assumed that that trust would not be touched during the BREA funding opportunity and that it would be left to sort of build up over and why BREA was considered gap funding. Tribal engagement is also a huge part of this. So Region 2, Bernalillo County, the city of Albuquerque also includes Isleta and Sandia Pueblos. Isleta is actively partnering and partnered with us immediately. And we hope to have their priorities by June 30th, which is the deadline. However, we have to acknowledge that our tribal partners' government works in a different way than our local governments do. And so we don't have a hard limit on them providing us with their priorities or their plan, and hope to just partner with them whenever those come in. There is a separate tribal set aside. So in addition to the dollars that we're receiving for Region 2, we're also receiving a tribal set aside. That allocation is $1,006,524, which is $335,508 annually. And it's not per tribe, it's per year. That was just a little typo on my part as I was thinking about tribal engagement. You'll have to excuse me. Next slide. So our project overview, this kind of comes out of what the requirements were for our actual regional plan. All regions were required to form an accountable entity that would be the fiscal agent. Bernalillo County was voted on as that fiscal agent. We talked a lot to the city of Albuquerque about their interest in doing that. And they said, Bernalillo County, you have this shiny new 2025 strategic plan with a behavioral health authority. You guys do it. But the city of Albuquerque has been a wonderful partner in this process. Our engagement has been massive. BREA has really required a lot of transparency and a lot of community engagement. We've completed community listening sessions, an enhanced sequential intercept model eSIM event. We've had stakeholder meetings that are also open to the public, and we created a webpage under the Bernalillo County Behavioral Health. That's under Senate Bill 3 is part of that, but all of the documents can be accessed. There's monthly updates. There's links to our stakeholder committee meeting and the eSIM report. We are also engaging in presentations. So we're going to be presenting to the City Council. The Health Equity Council is a part of our stakeholder committee and is giving us final feedback on our draft. The Bernalillo County Addiction Treatment Advisory Board we presented to, as well as the Bernalillo County Behavioral Health Advisory Board, and we are on the calendar for the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council as well. As I said, we were tasked with finding 5 priorities. Those 5 priorities came out of our eSIM event, which was focused on children, youth, and family.
Could you explain what an eSIM event is?
Yes, as well as from adult and a review of our adult projects that have happened since 2019. So I think we've had 1 report per year since 2019 about our adult system. So an enhanced sequential intercept model event or eSIM event took the SIM or sequential intercept mapping from SAMHSA and our University of New Mexico technical assistance partners sort of expanded that to also include children, youth, and families as a separate side of it, and to include a prevention piece, which was not originally in the sequential intercept. So the sequential intercept model is based out of different intercepts that we can divert individuals away from the justice system who may have mental health or substance abuse issues. Now, again, there was a lot of chatter at the top about whether or not that was the best model to use. But this project was really a force to be reckoned with, and it was happening fast and furious. I do think that if any of you had an opportunity to read the Region 2 eSIM report, you'll notice that it really doesn't talk a whole lot about the justice system. There's one intercept that is very much the justice system, but the rest of it really has to do with the different community partners and providers that are working together to make sure that our youth are not involved. So I thought that that was a well-attended event. It was 2 days, and we had roughly 75 people both days. Our service gaps and key data sources came out of Medicaid utilization data that the Healthcare Authority provided us, also from our eSIM event, and then again, those adult assessments from 2019 to the present. Our top 5 priorities are policy, which we defined as advocating for laws, regulations, funding strategies, and administrative actions to improve the accessibility, quality, equity, integration, data integrity, and capacity to improve outcomes related to BRIA initiatives. Policy.
It's a lot under policy.
Access. Assuring access to timely, culturally sensitive, trauma responsive, and appropriate care by reducing regulatory, systemic, and cultural barriers to the behavioral health system. Continuum of care, so building a comprehensive and coordinated system of behavioral health services and supports that follow a person over time, aimed at seamless care transitions from prevention to treatment and long-term supports. Social drivers of health, addressing the root conditions that can be the largest contributors to positive behavioral health outcomes. Solutions to address these root causes are typically not covered by Medicaid and therefore require a different sustainability plan. And workforce development, building and strengthening a sustainable behavioral health workforce that is well-trained, culturally responsive, and financially supported across the continuum. Some of the funding considerations come from that Medicaid utilization data. So looking at our overall population, 35% of that makes under $50,000 a year and 14.2% are below the poverty line. Our Medicaid population has a higher Hispanic, Native American, and Black representation than our general population, and so something to note. And the funding needs, the Behavioral Health Trust really does need to be made whole for long-term stability over these projects across the state. Provider funding options, again, as Dr. Lindstrom talked about earlier, I think we really are looking at the opioid settlement experience to inform BRIA. We can get into that a little bit in the next slide, I think, but I think it's important to be aware of some of those barriers that we've seen in the opioid settlement moving into BRIA funding and getting those dollars out the door. Next slide. So again, our Native American service population is 48,947, and the allocation was just a little over $1 million at the 335,508 annually. There was a funding formula that the Healthcare Authority created to decide how much each region was going to make. There have been a lot of questions geared towards the Healthcare Authority about how they really figured all of that out and what that really means. But these are the numbers that we have for you today. So our equal base allocation, every region got 20% of the overall pot. So the equal base was 1,692,307.70 cents. The population and behavioral health need calculated out at 31.3%. So we got a little over $10 million. Service gaps addresses workforce service shortages. And we got 1.2 million, and then disproportionate impact, we got a little over 500,000. So total, we're looking at a 3-year allocation, and this is subtracting the Native American allocation, which is a truly separate pot of money. Region 2 will be receiving $13,796,540 with roughly 4.2 annually to disperse over the next 3 years.
And if I might interject, because this became kind of a bone of contention when this formula was communicated at one of the executive committee meetings for BRIA, had the powers that be decided to distribute funds on a per capita basis rather than this formula, we would have gotten 3 times as much money as we're getting by this distribution. And when we attempted to address this with the executive committee, they were very clear about, they saw this as an opportunity to correct historical wrongs in terms of rural portions of New Mexico. So the rural regions got the much higher priority. And we tried to make the case that we have the greatest population with the greatest need, and that a lot of the surrounding counties and regions rely on the services that we have here because of the dearth of services that exists there. And so there will be, it'll be interesting to watch these developments, because there are some of these regions that have a very small population base. They're regional, even if there are 3 or 4 counties that make up a region, that their governmental entities don't have much in the way of infrastructure and capacity themselves, and whether or not they'll be able to expand this additional funding. And any money that is not expended will revert back to the Behavioral Health Trust Fund. In the best world, if the $1 billion trust had been made whole, it was anticipated that by year 4, the trust fund would generate about $50 million a year of new money statewide. When you talk about statewide, doesn't necessarily go that far, but $1 billion trust fund, is quite significant. And the emphasis was again on reinvestment and reform. With the SCAP funding, as Dr. Neeser was alluding to earlier, this begins to resemble what we experienced with the opioid funding, where we had this accumulation of money. Now we've got 3 years, and do we invest in services, which is really the intent of the act in the first place? But again, without the trust fund being made whole, and there was a $650 million measure that was introduced in the last legislative session, never made it into House Bill 2. So we would have come much closer to that trust fund being whole. So again, as the entity that's been designated around trying to manage all this, I can in good conscience invest in things with recurring costs only to have to dismantle it at the end of year 3. So we're kind of in that same pickle again. So sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to clarify those dynamics that we're dealing with as well.
We're a team.
And that was, if I just may real quick, that was gonna be my question. That's not, thank you. That was gonna be my question real quick, is that it's not recurring, to your point, that, so like, you have to, thank you for saying you're gonna look at the way with the opioid settlement dollars have gone out, how we can make improvements to make sure, because if it's not recurring, especially in those rural counties, they could start something knowing that it's probably not gonna happen. And
Yes,
after
we've been chatting with Madam Chair. My manners.
Mine too, sorry, Madam Chair.
But we have been we've been working with HCA on trying to get more clarity around what this looks like and what it means and what the Behavioral Health Trust was really established for. I think there's maybe some confusion around what that looks like as well. I wish, I came in here hoping that I had more answers for you. I told Dr. Lindstrom he'd have to field all the questions. But or maybe we should have let housing go last because that was like really inspirational.
Yeah.
But but I think we still, all of the regions have a lot of questions around this funding piece and what it really means and what it looks like. We know that there are other funding opportunities that just haven't been really transparently shared with us that could supplement or we could braid into this. But at this point in time, it really does seem like one-time fund. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
I was gonna say, proceed with the presentation.
Okay. We also got a surprise. In November, we were notified of an early access funding opportunity that was not originally a part of the Behavioral Health Reform and Investment Act. All of the regions were given roughly 6 weeks to create a proposal for $2 million. There was a lot of interesting guidance around that process, but Bernalillo County submitted one, and we're happy to say that we were awarded $2 million. $1 million of that is going to go to Albuquerque Public Schools Violence Intervention Program that was going to be losing funding. And $1 million is going to Bernalillo County to renovate the Mariposa Residential Treatment Facility for pregnant and postpartum women with substance use disorders to allow them to stay with all of their children. Is that correct?
Yes, I love this. Share it.
Yeah.
If I may interrupt it, that's phase 1. We will begin working after we do some renovations of that facility to work with the new early childhood education program around establishing a daycare center so that the mothers that we have in treatment not only can have their infant with them, but if they have other children, that's been the biggest barrier to this program, is if the mother didn't have a spouse, didn't have extended family, she couldn't access treatment because there wasn't anybody to take care of her other kids, and we couldn't accommodate that based on space limitations and not having daycare. So we're working on that as well.
I do want to give a little bit of an update and maybe some food for thought in terms of how BRIA will roll out in totality, which is also something that is a little bit unclear at this point. But so those early access funds, we were told that we were approved for that funding back in February, like beginning of February. We received an HCA correspondence on April 9th that discussed the delay that we were having and just receiving an intergovernmental agreement discussing that the dollars needed to go through DFA for an exemption approval, and that hadn't been considered prior. So a fully signed IGA between HCA and Bernalillo County was executed yesterday. So that's very exciting. However, no funds have actually come to any region for early access thus far.
Wow.
Last slide. So in our regional plan, we have this broken out a little bit. We have this broken out in our plan by year, but due to the condensing of these slides, you'll see year 1, 2, 3 across the top. So each column is a year, and you'll see our priority there. And so year 1, we're talking about using 10% of the funding for policy, 15% of the funding for access, 25% for continuum of care, social drivers of health, and workforce development. We had a lot of conversations about what this looked like, and we believe that some of the things that need to happen are these higher level policy changes to make access and our continuum of care stronger and more continuous. And so an initial first year push for those policy recommendations up at the state level, I think are really important. Year 5 is maybe some follow through with those recommendations. You'll see year 2, a decrease in those funds. Year 1 with access, 15%. Access we're describing as expanded service hours, training certifications, class, continued technical support, and other access issues like language, culture, physical access, financial issues that might arise with our service population. So true actual access issues, not access points, but the things that make receiving services challenging. Continuum of care covers all of that other sort of access point discussion. So expanding, enhancing, and developing programs, building infrastructure capacity and sustainability of our services across the lifespan. You'll see that as we decrease access in year 2, because we believe we'll probably able to build up those services that need assistance in those areas, you'll see us add money down to continuum of care, social drivers of health, and workforce development, as those are sort of our really big ticket items that I think we need to be focusing on. It wasn't me that made these decisions, I just want to say. But so social drivers of health, like I said, to promote those community stability and wellness programs through equitable service and provision, and then workforce development, addressing the overall behavioral health continuum, workforce shortages and trainings. And that's all the way from certified peer support workers to our licensed professionals. That was fast and furious. I'm trying to think if there were things that I wanted to tell you, but this has been a very arduous process, and I just want to congratulate everyone who's participated in it. We submitted a regional plan to the Healthcare Authority. One of the other challenges that we're having is that the Behavioral Health Reform and Investment Act Executive Committee decided to only meet quarterly. And so in order to get these plans reviewed and approved prior to and start going through this financial agreement between HCA and the county, we were really hoping to get this done for the April meeting, which the April meeting is on the 23rd. So any feedback, et cetera, that you all have for us, either from this group or the county commissioners or the city council and APS, we made a provision when we submitted that we are still meeting with you all, and that if there are changes that we will submit those in writing to the executive committee prior to that.
If they're substantive.
Prior to that April 23rd meeting. So I guess that wraps it up, and we will stand for any questions that you have.
Sure.
Well, if I might, I would have 2 asks for you this evening. One is that, and I'll be making this ask of the county manager as well as our county commission, that as we formulate our legislative priorities for the next session, that making that $1 billion behavioral health trust whole be one of our legislative priorities. And so that I ask the other bodies represented here to consider doing something similar, because this will all be for naught if that trust fund is not whole. The other thing that I ask you to consider, and I know you probably haven't had any time to actually go through the regional plan, but whether it's at this meeting or a subsequent meeting, you do go through it and are so moved to basically approve it, we will add that endorsement to our submission so that the executive committee for BRIA understands that we've had the various governing entities within the second judicial district, and this this plan basically has had endorsement across the board.
Thank you, Dr. Lindstrom. And we'll open it up for questions. Commissioner Frank Buck.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Dr. Lindstrom, you've essentially already answered my question, and I think there's a huge opportunity this next session. We've been hearing numbers of at least $4 billion in new money, and so a collaborative effort to infuse capital into that trust fund, I think is ahead. I don't know that they're ever going to see that again. At least that's what I've heard from different legislators, but it's at least $4 billion, some saying even more. So it's an opportunity, and I'm glad to hear that's already in the works to collaboratively pursue that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions from our board or commission? Okay. The question I have is, my first year on council, I got assigned to an LC2 committee. And I have not ever seen any appointments of any of us to those since my first year in office, and I got reassigned, of course, in the next year of council to something else. But where I loved being a part of that LC2 group, because it was really meeting with the clinicians and the providers and really hearing directly from them. And they've recently reached out to invite me to their quality expert dialogue, which is, I don't consider myself an expert. I'm a user of behavioral health services. But I think, so how do we fit into the LC2s, and is there, I'm not saying that anybody needs any more committees, I promise. But I was interested in, like, why 1 year and then after that, nothing for representation on the LC2s. And those are the local collaboratives, which are regional and bring all the folks together. And I loved those meetings because I get to talk to my providers and get the real deal about what was happening. And so how does that work now?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, I used to be the CEO of the Behavioral Health Collaborative at the state level. And in the Martinez administration, which is the administration I served under, there wasn't a lot of buy-in relative to the Behavioral Health Collaborative, and that's why I did double duty as the CEO of the collaborative and also as the director of the Behavioral Health Services Division. Statute required that the Behavioral Health Collaborative meet at least quarterly. And it was made up of all of the departmental secretaries that had any authority related to behavioral health, which was about 15 different state departments. And it was a great opportunity for me as a division director to basically have access to department secretaries. And so I was able to do things relative just having those relationships over time to have greater and broader partnerships. But subsequent to that, Bryce Pinninger, some of you probably know, was the CEO of the collaborative after I left. And she filled that role for a few years in this administration. And once she left, she was never replaced, and the Behavioral Health Collaborative never reconvened. And as a result of that, the legislature in 2025 dissolved the Behavioral Health Collaborative. And with the Behavioral Health Collaborative, there was all these regional local collaboratives that back when this first was came as an initiative, got annual funding. That all went away as well. And so the local collaboratives who still exist, and not every region has one, has really had to survive on its own.
Wow. Well, thank you for that explanation. It makes me think about all of the feedback they were giving about the lack of access to state and to carry their concerns all the way up there. So do they know that has all been dissolved? Okay. Interesting.
And Madam Chair, I'd also like to say that we've worked really hard on partnering with our local collaborative for this BRIA effort. And so I've presented at every single one of their meetings since this process has started. Their president sits on our stakeholder committee. And so all of that information is being shared with them in hopefully they feel a collaborative way.
Yeah.
I sure get a lot of feedback from them when I present. And there's a lot of cross collaboration, a lot of individuals who are on the local collaborative who are on other boards and committees as well. So
Thank you.
the local collaborative here has been very much involved and included in this process. But to Dr. Lindstrom's point, everyone's very aware, and there was a pretty huge fight at the legislature this year to fund local collaboratives and the health equity councils.
Thank you so much. I'll ask the rest of my questions offline because we need to get on with the rest of our meeting. So thank you so much for your presentation. Last item on our agenda, item 7, is the announcement of our next meeting, which is June 18th. And again, that is June 18th, hybrid meeting. And seeing no further business, our meeting is adjourned. Oh, thank you. The location will be here at APS. Yeah. Is that right? Yep. APS is that accurate? APS will host the entire.
No, we'd like to,
Okay.
but I need to check.
So for if there's any changes to the location, we'll let you know for sure.